everyone, and welcome to another Helm to Tower podcast. I am Mike Burgess, and I am here with my co-host Alex O'Neill. Hello.
Yo.
Alex, from when we were recording this, we are less than 10 days from Destiny 2 Lightfall. By the time it's in everybody's eyes or ears, this podcast, which you can watch on youtube.com/Helm to Tower or on podcast services. We are now on podcast services. I like totally forgot to say that in the lesson until like the last 10 minutes.
Say it at the top.
Say it at the top. We're on podcast services. So if you're into the audio version, obviously we're called a podcast, so it makes sense. We're on podcast services. We're on Spotify. Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts.
I think we're on Apple Music.
And yeah, we should
check.
Yeah, you can double check that because I don't have anything Apple, and you set that up for us kindly. But yeah, more than likely we should be on there as well. All the episodes we've had up till now, this is episode 5. And yeah, I was gonna say we're 10 days away. We're less than 10 days away from Lightfall from when we're recording this. By the time you hear it or watch it, we will be less than 8 days away from the launch of Destiny 2 Lightfall, new expansion. And we've gotten a bunch of weeks upon weeks of now. We've been covering all the news that has dropped for all the blog posts and videos and everything. They've been dropping a ton of stuff in the lead up, and that includes the week we've just wrapped up, where we got probably like the most news, I feel like, in some ways.
Maybe it's between this week and last week.
Because I think the thing with this week in particular, which once we get into it, like this week was talking about Lightfall, of course, a little bit, but it was also talking about like what we can kind of laying the groundwork for like the next year of Destiny into Lightfall, Beyond, and then the final shape, which is even weird to think about because it's weird to think about us getting a brand new expansion, but yeah, there's obviously another very major expansion after that, a year or more from now. So they kind of talk about some of the stuff we'll see, like kind of some of the stuff that they're laying the groundwork in for Lightfall, and Beyond was kind of talked about this week, as well as, of course, Bungie does a big Vidoc video usually before every expansion, and that is kind of your hype builder. Listen to the devs talk about all the things they kind of worked on for Lightfall and all the things they're excited about. And they usually give us a little bit more story details and stuff in that too, which we got that this past week. And then, like I said, we had this big blog from Joe Blackburn, who's the game director for Destiny 2. He did basically a big state of the game blog that's literally over 5,000 words, kind of talking about Destiny as it is now and kind of where it's going over the next year. So we're gonna talk about all that stuff.
Yeah, a lot of Gambit news. We gotta go through. A lot of...
Yep, 5,000 words about Gambit. You can Control F in that blog. We'll have it linked below on the YouTube channel. Go look about all these hot Gambit details, brother or sister out there.
Bring a sword.
Bring a sword. But yeah, let's get into we're going to start here with, because this is again what we got at the top of this past week, was the State of the Game blog that Joe Blackburn wrote for us. Huge blog. I kind of really like how he in particular kind of laid it out, where he kind of said it in this he kind of set up all the talking points under these 4 big kind of blanket ideas for what they want to do with Destiny this year. And that was, the first one is expand players' imaginations. Then it was bring challenge back to Destiny. Definitely interesting there. Enriching our content and connecting our guardians are the 4 big kind of points they have that Joe broke down. So we'll just kind of go down those in order. We're going to abbreviate some of it because it is, like I said, it is a lot. But again, like usually when we talk about this stuff, I should mention I always usually put the links to the actual blogs and things in the YouTube description. So you can always, if you want to go read that stuff for yourself, if you haven't at this point, you can just check that YouTube description out and like grab the links from there. But yeah, he starts off with expanding the player imagination and kind of, this is something that I think he brought up on Twitter like a few months ago, because I think it kind of really something over the past year of Destiny from Witch Queen till now in Lightfall, I think was something that a lot of players started feeling the seasonal fatigue, so to speak.
Yeah. It was right at the end of Plunder.
Yeah, definitely Plunder. I'll even say for myself personally, like I definitely Plunder kind of hit that itching point of just like, all right, you've introduced a bunch of cool stuff, but now it's obviously all like aspects of different grinding, because that's a big aspect of Destiny. It's an MMO, so of course you're gonna be grinding for stuff. That's just you kind of have to expect that to a certain point nowadays. But they kind of layered stuff on top of already layering on these like all this kind of seasonal stuff, and I didn't find a lot of the actual content that you were playing in Plunder as engaging as maybe some other seasons. So kind of layering all this stuff on was just kind of like, okay, I am tired of, seeing a seasonal grid box of upgrades that you are slowly being doled out week over week. I'm tired of just kind of seeing some of these frameworks that we've seen for so long. And, he kind of had to take to Twitter when a lot of that kind of discussion online from across the Destiny community kind of started rearing up. And I think this is a more direct follow-up and kind of gave us more insight into what they are thinking about. They said they want to start doing this and start thinking about seasons in a different light. So that definitely was, I think, a lot of what this expanding our imaginations kind of side was about, right? So I'll just read some of the things I put down here and kind of the abbreviation. So basically kind of what they're planning with Season of Defiance. Season of Defiance is Season 20 as a season that is launching aside Witch Queen. We know some story about it now because we got the Vidoc, which showed some stuff that we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
And we got a cool tease in this blog at first, which just kind of showed the cool kind of key art that you usually get each season, where it showed these guardians in very kind of medieval knight looking armor, but it's also kind
Queen's
of
Guard.
yeah, the Queen's Guard. It's very Morozov inspired. You can straight up see Morozov in that key art, kind of looking ominous spot in the sky. And you can also see some other things, maybe, I don't know, some fucking pyramid objects on Earth. Nothing could be wrong with that, right?
I'm sure everything's going great.
all right, and
we don't have to rescue prisoners of war or anything.
Yeah, nothing crazy. But yeah, they go a little bit more in depth than the Vidoc, so we'll save more talk about that when we get to that. Lot to talk about this week.
Yeah.
But basically, he said kind of, say season 20 was kind of already content complete and kind of more or less finished being made before this kind of expand player imagination thoughts were going into effect. They kind of they worked. That's it kind of give you an idea. I think they even said it earlier. Seasons are worked way ahead of time, and I think people I think don't realize how far ahead Bungie is working already. Because I think that I already saw one of them tweet they are already doing testing for the next season 21, and are already starting to work on season 22. It's internally they're already multiple seasons ahead of us where they're at. So that's usually why sometimes you'll see things, player sentiment is different than where the game is at, because they are working past tense. So player sentiment a month from now can be completely different from what it is today. So that's just it's tricky, and they always
just to further dig in the idea, because a lot of people complain about Destiny players' favorite things to do is complain about Destiny, but is the team is actively trying to interpret ahead of time what people are going to have difficulties with, and that's the paradigm that they're working within. So
exactly.
It's not easy. It's very difficult.
Yeah,
I would say.
I'd say it's very difficult, especially for a game like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of the big thing is, they did say though, however, there will be a lot of more quality of life updates with this season. That I do like a lot of the things they said that Joe kind of broke down for the season. The big thing was Umbral energy and amber engrams are gone. They kind of, I think they already said this earlier in like one of the blog posts, but yeah, they are gone.
I didn't know about energy. That was an update here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So basically how we have it right now, if you're playing the game, like each season gets like its own kind of energy that you use to like focus engrams for loot from that specific season. So now what it's gonna be is there are seasonal engrams, and they just seem like they're gonna be on the vendor. I don't know if we don't really know for sure if the seasonal engrams just drop from activities or anything like that. But for right now, they're just saying the seasonal vendors, the seasonal engrams you get from activities will just be on vendors now.
Yeah.
So basically,
which is how the playlists are going to work starting in season 20 as well.
Yeah.
And similar to, we talked about it, I think it was like 3 episodes ago, where not sure if, like they could potentially be a drop at the end of a strike. It's like, oh, you got a strike engram, and that goes to Zavala and kind of continues to stack on top of his stack of engrams, because things are going to cost multiple engrams and stuff like that. So yeah, we same here. We don't necessarily know if maybe they still drop in the world, but you pick them up and they just go right to the vendor. Who knows?
Right.
So we'll have to see on that, but definitely good choice. I imagine that just means what prime engrams are the only engrams you'll be picking up.
Yeah, it's like prime engrams,
bright engrams.
Yeah, bright engrams, like, but they just kind of drop from the Eververse stuff after you finish your season pass, and like, all the other vendors are, the engrams will just be on them now. I mean, I guess they haven't specifically said if the trials engrams will be able to you'll be able to use those, but I'm assuming they're just going to kind of do it for all the vendors, because I know right now, like Crucible engrams, you can they just sit on checks, and then you can go to the little focusing tab and pick what you want to focus out of that. And then I think Vanguard is getting that as well the next season. Gambit has its own unique engrams, but I know as of right now, you have to pull them off of Drifter, and then you can focus when they're on you. So I'm curious if they're just going to across the board make it so all the engrams, that would make sense.
I think so. I think they're doing that.
Because now, like we said, now each season we get a new vendor of some kind. Well, just for this season, because as we'll get to, they said later seasons will be different and might not actually have a proper vendor system. Our vendor paradigm, rather, I think is what they said.
Yeah.
But that'll be interesting, and we'll see what that exactly means, I guess, once that season becomes more relevant, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, and it seems through some Vidoc stuff, it seems like the War Table will be the helm vendor for Season of Defiance.
Right. And then won't be it's also on top of no Umbral energy. They also said there will not be a unique kind of seasonal currency. Rather, what they're going to do, what we're going to get from now on, are keys, and these keys can drop from any activity. So you could just play the seasonal activity specifically, and you'll have a chance to get this key to drop. And then the key you can use to open up bonus chests at the end of these activities. And they emphasized in this that they want these chests to actually feel more like a bonus rather than a complete necessary in order to progress. Because that's definitely a thing that has been about these last 2 seasons, has been especially Plunder. I thought it was a lot where it's all right, Plunder, you literally had to play Catch Crash to get one currency, and then you had to play random activities to get another currency, to then just go into this one activity to then use to get a chest at the end. And that's the thing you would have to get to progress in a thing. Where now it's just I can literally play anything, I get a key, I can open up an extra chest, and that's just an extra chest for extra rewards at the end of the seasonal activity. It doesn't even I don't need it to progress a story mission a week. It's more or less what that kind of sounds like, which I think is a great change. It makes it makes it much smoother progress throughout the seasons, and just playing the seasonal stuff. It does not make it feel like this kind of weird loophole thing, our back and forth of hey, if I just want to run a bunch of strikes one day, now I can do it, and there's a chance these keys will just drop from strikes. Or if I'm just playing a bunch of Crucible matches, I could probably get a key from that. Or if it's just there's brand new content and I just want to play the brand new stuff when it first drops at the start of the week, I can just play a bunch of that activity and get a bunch of drops from that. So really really good.
This is great. I've been helping some of the new light friends finish season of the Seraph stuff, and boy, like, you know, after it's all said and done, it is such a bummer to be like, all right, we did this quest, now we have to go run 2 strikes so you can get 500 of this currency, so that way we can run another one of these things, and then we can do the story mission.
You can get these key codes that you then have to feed into this thing, and then like, or like, oh, I have to get these pirate treasure maps that then I have to put into the spy class or whatever it was, the treasure map, and like
treasure map,
and like none of that anymore. That sounds great. Just to hear that alone was like cool, awesome, great change.
And it seems like, you know, like the guaranteed red border and stuff like that you would get from that currency chest in these activities is just going to be the prime chest, and then the extra chest will be maybe an extra red border, which is great. I will say the one thing I hope they kind of bring back and take keys from that I did like was Master Catch Crash drop 3 chests at the end. You know, not always like a ton of good loot there, but it's 3 more opportunities to get things.
Right.
And like legendary heist battlegrounds don't have that. It's still just 2 chests. You get potentially better and more rewards from the extra chest.
Sure.
So stuff like that too, I would love to see more of.
More of that. We'll just have to see for sure. But yeah. Also for Season of Defiance, there will be fewer total vendor upgrades. So, you know, again, that has been my pain point for a while for the seasonal system. I want to say you can go, if you go to youtube.com/irrational passions, our original, where we talked about Destiny stuff. I think if you go back to our Witch Queen review discussion, I complain about that and that. Like, that's just how long that system has been even longer than that. Cause like you can go back even further to the Beyond Light endgame viewpoints and see me and you playing Beyond Light campaign and see that same vendor like kind of upgrade system that was like back in that, and like it goes even before that as well. Like, so it's been 2+ years of like a very same kind of style system of like upgrading each week, and it's just like, hey, I just don't want to do it anymore. It's not that it's bad. It's just that we've been doing it for so long. It's just like it's been the same thing for so long. It's like, please just try something else.
And it causes that same problem of like, well, if you just wait 5 weeks into the season, because all these things are time gated, you'll walk in with 10 of those upgrades and you'll be able to get everything way faster.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel good in those early seasons. And they say, Joe mentions that they're going to be more potent vendor upgrades as well.
Yeah. That's good.
With less of them, which is very good.
Yeah, for sure. And I think then we move on to, I think, even better news, which is now the next season, which they went into a little bit of detail of the next season after Season of Defiance, Season of the Deep, Season 2020, Season 21. They even named it for us. That was a pretty cool thing to see that they are talking about it already. But they straight up talk about here is they said no vendor upgrade paradigm. So that system I just talked about with those things been doing last year is not even going to be existent next season. Really cool. But they do say the vendor upgrades can return potentially in the future, but they want to create more framework for seasons to change what players can expect for any given season. And I think like I want to even say I've said this in this thing where like I think a really smart idea would be is like make, at least for right now, like make like 2 or 3 variants of like what you can expect, right? Like have the vendor paradigm, upgrade paradigm thing for a season, have like a different style of like upgrading or going through a season, and have like another one, and then they can just like spot these in different seasons where it makes sense. So that way they like, you know, when you see one, it's like, all right, well, I haven't done this in a while, at least, so like it doesn't feel as bad, and they can do it instead of like 20 seasons, like, or not even 20, but like not that far off from like 10 almost 10 seasons in a row of just the same style of seasonal upgrade. So like that's exactly the direction I want them to go, is like make multiple things, because I know like at the end of the day, like, you know, they were gonna keep making seasons for Destiny, and like it clearly really works because there is a lot of great things about their seasonal like frameworks they do, about like especially the storytelling department and stuff. It's like it is that aspect of it is fantastic. But I think now the actual like gameplay aspects and how they want us to like kind of play the game like needs to change. And it seems like they're going in that direction. So that's exciting to hear for season 21.
Season of the Deep.
Season of the Deep. Boys. That's right. That's going to be really interesting. They also said there will be a new season, a type of seasonal activity that we haven't seen before. And I think the examples they used were they wanted to make something kind of like unique that they did season like particular. I think they called out the thing that was in Season of the Lost that I forget what it was called, but it was like it would change each week and you went to those big areas. It wasn't like the 6-player activity. It was like
the Shattered Realm.
The Shattered Realm. That's what it was called. Yes. Where basically like each week it would change and you get these big areas you could kind of explore, and each week they would get like new things to do. That was a really cool activity.
Idea for you. Okay. What if it's Season of the Deep, so we're going into maybe the Dark Realm or back into the Shattered Realm, whatever. Yeah. What if we're going back to Titan, IO? All these other locations, but in the darkness, in the deep.
Seeing how it's affected by like wherever it is, I'm in. That'd be so cool. That'd be so cool. And like that's like a way they can bring back like older strikes or something. Maybe we get like some other strikes. Like we go back
the activities are like remixes of those strikes in the darkness, right?
Yeah,
like,
I'm totally in. You sold me immediately. I'm in. I'm in.
I hope so. It definitely, like, I think in this season it's the last year, right? We're moving to the finale. I don't know how Final Shape is going to be and what the seasons post Final Shape are going to be. Obviously, we'll get there when we get there. But it definitely seems like they're going to up the ante for this season. And for these seasons, I should say. And I think the Leviathan was an experiment on having destinations be seasonal content, and I think we'll see more of it.
Yes. And they also, I think there's some more things they talk about, like things they're doing in the seasons to like freshen and change things I think are later in the blog. And so we'll just get to those when we get to those. But that's the things I kind of pulled out first that like those were really nice to hear. They did say like, but they basically said this activity they want to be either like Shattered Realm or like when we got Battlegrounds for the first time in Season of the Chosen, where they felt much more like a bigger kind of thing for the year, and something if they're like Battlegrounds, that might be something that like sticks around potentially, which could be cool.
Yeah.
Another thing they said, which I'll point out because we brought up Battlegrounds, they did confirm in this, which I missed kind of the first time I was reading through this, and then reading through like later in the thing they talk about Battlegrounds, and they more or less confirm that Battlegrounds are this season of Defiance's seasonal activity. Like it's some kind of Battlegrounds. So,
which I know back-to-back seasons with that is definitely going to rub people the wrong way, but like the war has begun, so it makes the most sense.
Yeah, it makes the most sense for that, and like considering these are activities that they've continued to keep around. Like I don't think Battlegrounds are just going away, obviously. So like I think they will become a marquee thing, and was get again more on that in the later in the blog. So definitely a lot more Battlegrounds to look forward to in the future of Destiny. So and I don't mind that. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
So the other thing, the next part they talk about was weapon crafting. So there's actually this state of the game. They talk about weapon crafting here, and then like the day after that, there was actually another blog they put out that was kind of like a weapon crafting update. And I will say like, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just curious, how now that we're like a year into weapon crafting, before we get into these changes, how do you feel about weapon crafting? Like, do you like it? Is it a good addition?
I think it is. I personally like the addition of it. I understand the sentiment of people like saying, hey, for many years the core part of Destiny was these random loot drops, and there's like an excitement level. There's definitely an excitement level. Like I definitely felt it too a lot sometimes when you'd finish a raid encounter and you'd run up and pick up a weapon and you'd be like, oh, it's this trusty. I hope it's a good roll. And then, there would be a lot of times where it wasn't a good roll. And then the one time you get the good roll, you're like, oh man, this is so cool. And I got this trusty roll, or I got this, whatever it is, So I always liked that, but also there was extremes to it, and I know you personally have experienced those extremes. Everybody who's probably played Destiny has experienced their own different level of this extreme of a different drop. And I think personally for me, I think crafting is here to stay, and I don't want it to go. I like the I don't think it's a perfect system as it is now, and even with the things they talk about that we're going to get into, I still don't think it might be a perfect system, because there's still things I would want out of it that they didn't go over here. But I do like the idea of getting these interesting weapons each season. And it seems like that'll be kind of the focus from here on. A lot of the craftable weapons will either be seasons or the raid weapons. And getting these weapons and then leveling them up and having them kind of be these kind of main kind of weapons we're always going to be using at any time, and they can be usable and viable in the game at any time. Because that's another thing people are going to realize, which we haven't really had yet, is when they do another buff pass to a certain type of weapon, right? We can look at a lot of us as longtime players who did the work to get all these crafted weapons can now go look through a whole library of frames of weapons and be like, oh man, they're buffing auto rifles. I mean, craft a sweet SAR right now and throw these perks on it. Oh, they buffed this perk or changed how this perk works. Oh man, this crafted weapon has that on it, so let me go craft this. It adds that it prevents so many of those troubling points that Destiny once had for folks that I deleted this out of my vault because I wasn't using it 2 years ago, but it was a crafted pattern, so I can go craft it now and have this better version of this weapon because they updated these perks now. I think it just adds so many ways to prevent a lot of the pain points that had existed in Destiny for so long. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that go away. So overall, I'm a big fan of weapon crafting as a concept. I just think they need to figure out some stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I think I really love it, and I say I think because there's definitely been ups and downs to it. My biggest gripes right now are it just takes way too long to level up guns, especially anything with special ammo is a nightmare to level up, and it sucks. It took me hours upon hours to get my Defiance of Yasmin up to level 11 so I could put the 2 perks that I wanted to put onto it. And I was like, I'm never gonna do this again with a sniper rifle. I'm trying to do that with Succession right now, and it's miserable.
I did that. Literally today I was doing that exact same thing. I was leveling up my Succession, and I was like, this just kind of sucks because the sniper and you're not mowing down enemies, and there's not it's not the great. You guess you can run activities and get an extra bump in it just by having it on, but still, it's just it's.
Which is what I do. That's the fastest way for me to do it, in my opinion. But I like enhanced perks. I like the versatility of it. The Doritos going away is an objectively good thing, I think. Just use Glimmer, it's fine. It is so funny to see how many materials there were
at the start of this, and then they're just gone.
One at the end. Just Ascendant Alloys. That's it. The end. I think similarly, I like it with raid weapons. I like always getting 2 pieces of loot that are worthy, 2 red borders per raid run at least, hopefully more. I like one of my favorite changes they've made in this past year to any time in Destiny is making these raid rotators where you can just grind them forever. I just love that so much. And it's I don't want to run Last Wish once a week, every week. I want to 1 week out of the season, I'll just get a party together. We'll play it for 6 hours and I'll never have to play it again. Right. That's way more fun for me.
Right.
Maybe not for everybody. I get it, but yeah, I've really liked crafting. I have every single recipe except for one, which is the Epicurean from the dungeon from Duality, which I'm never going to get that probably, which is fine. And I've loved crafting stuff. It's so fun to make your own thing. And I think the change that they're making with this enhancement thing that we'll talk about in a second is a good like middle ground. To a random roll can still be as good as anything. It just seems like a little limited right now, but clearly they're just testing out the system. But yeah, I like crafting and I'm glad it's here. I'm not like one of the crafting haters and I don't think Bungie regrets putting crafting in the game.
No.
I think they just
I don't think so.
They want they're all of Lightfall is about like getting rid of bullshit currency, to be honest. So that's like the biggest sub objective I feel to that, and I think that's a good thing because there's just a lot of currency.
Yeah, getting rid of a lot of BS currencies and like introducing like and streamlining some systems in the new world that has like been slowly building in Destiny, for sure. Mm-hmm. But weapon crafting. I put this as like basically like kind of the big takeaway from the weapon crafting talk in this blog post and the extra blog they did at Wednesday. It's like I got the feeling that like they're gonna call like there's gonna be a bigger update to weapon like they're making smaller incremental updates. Like there's some in Lightfall and there's gonna be some across the seasons. But like I think they talked further out, there's going to be a bigger change with like, hey, we're going to be removing more of these currencies from the system, and like Ascendant alloys will have a different presence, and there's also these other changes we're going to talk to. And it basically made me say like, hey, expect like not season 21, but like 22 or beyond. They're just going to be like weapon crafting 2.0, and then like there's going to be like a substantial change to that system. But here's kind of the big goals. And again, this is like, this is mainly from the state of the game. And there's a secondary blog that just kind of said like, hey, they're kind of targeting this thing for like, I think like season 21 or beyond that. So like a lot of these changes I didn't get super nitty gritty into because again, a lot of this crafting stuff will ultimately be like next season or later. And there'll be a few things in Lightfall, but not too much compared to what they kind of go over. But let me just talk about it. To create independent chases for both crafted and non-crafted weapons, starting with Lightfall, fewer of our total weapons will be craftable, and more of our weapons with long-term sources will get value from random perk rolls. So in that crafting blog, they did show like, hey, basically for Lightfall, the Neo Moon weapons are going to be craftable. The Season of Defiance weapons will be craftable, and the raid weapons will be craftable. There won't be any kind of like, I think like before we got like the Taipan or the solar auto rifle or the rock, like some rocket launcher. Like it won't be like world drop weapons that'll be craftable anymore. It sounds like those will be those long-term sources like they're talking about, where those weapons will just drop from world drops, or like if you just randomly pop an Engram or whatever, those weapons will just be those random drops. But again, like you said, a thing they're going to be doing to make those random drops more valuable, because like you said, crafting as it is now lets you enhance weapons, lets you put like mementos on them, or like level the weapons and kind of choose perks and change perks on it. What they're going to be doing is to allow these non-crafted weapons to stand toe-to-toe with crafted weapons in Lightfall. I think they kind of said they wanted the weapons to stand toe-to-toe with crafted weapons. So in the year of Lightfall, more and more of our non-crafted weapons, starting with the new raid adepts for this year's raid, will have the ability to be enhanced. So they basically...
They did specify that the adept raid weapons will be coming in Season of the Deep,
right?
So that I would expect, for folks out there, Master Lightfall raid will not be available until Season of the Deep, just so folks out there know.
So yeah, I wasn't sure if they meant like this version of the raid adepts will be in Deep, or if that Master raid. I guess it could be either way, but like I would say maybe just on the safe side, maybe keep both of those expectations. Like, hey, maybe we won't see Master Raid till Season of the Deep. But
yeah, I'll see if I can find the verbiage, but you can keep going.
Yeah. So the enhancing of weapons will allow your dropped weapons to start leveling up, use mementos, and gain access to both enhanced perks and enhanced intrinsic properties, but only the enhanced versions of the perks and masterworks that are already on the version of the weapon you're enhancing. So basically, that's definitely be a big differentiator. So if you craft a weapon, you'll be able to more directly choose perks, choose the masterworks, and other things like that, where if you enhance a world drop or a random drop that you get, they just have those and what they will have. But you'll still be able to enhance the perks on them, which I think is the big thing, for sure, for a lot of folks. So that definitely brings up a question. Well, I guess let me just keep going through this, and then I'll bring up kind of a big thing I want out of crafting still. Simply said, with some time and resources, enhancing allows you to take the random rolled weapon you've obtained and enhance the existing to roll match full power of craft weapons. There you go. You're targeting to roll this out initially with Lightfall rated depths at the launch of Season of the Deep. Long term, we want to expand this functionality to most of our new non-crafted weapons, but there are some technical hurdles we're solving first. For crafted weapons, we have additional changes planned. You will never see a deep sight weapon unless it is a weapon you can craft. So that is going to be starting with Lightfall. That's pretty good. So that's still say, like, when you see a red border in game, you know it's valuable because it is part of getting those patterns. Targeting Season of the Deep, we'll also be adding a mechanism to activate deep sight on any craftable weapon they do not have a pattern for. I really like this a lot because that basically is saying, like, so they did specify in the previews that you can't just, like, let's say for instance, I get an auto rifle that is craftable. Basically, if you get one that drops and it's not a red border, so you can't use it as a pattern, you can then turn it into like a deep sight resonance, and then you can extract a pattern from it. They said that it won't be a thing where, like, if you get one, you can do that 5 times on that single weapon. You can just do it once on that weapon, and then you can do it. But even so, only. Yeah, I know. But even so, that means you can just get 5 drops of that weapon, and as long as you have the currency to do this stuff, you can do that. So obviously it'll still depend on, like, what that cost is, how you acquire currencies and stuff, right? But like the idea of just like, oh, I can just get like 5 of this auto rifle, and even if I don't have this right now, I can just hold on to a handful of these and grind out that currency and then pop a bunch of those, things if I want to just knock this out super fast. I like that a lot, that they're like, because that lets you focus directly for these weapons, and then, focus on crafting them first by getting these patterns, instead of just like kind of relying on completely random drops and hoping for red borders. Like, think how much that would have helped for things like, doing a Deep Stone crypt run, and like thinking we did 8 tracks like 20 times, and it's like we could have done that 20 times and been done with those weapons like in half that time if we just had those currencies and we're just getting a bunch of random drops. And you can even just save drops and throw them in your vault, and then when you have the currency, hey, pop that into that, extract resonance, boom, you got another pattern done. So like, I think that's an awesome way to do that. I like that.
And this to me is like, okay, Xur sells last season's weapons, buy it, dump currency into it, get the deep sight, slowly week over week. This totally fills in all the gaps for me. We don't know what the cost is. I imagine it could be like enhancement cores or upgrade modules or whatever, and then raid weapons. It could be spoils as well.
Sure.
And I did get clarity in the weapon crafting blog post. It says, note that Master Raid Adept Enhancing will be introduced a few weeks after Lightfall Master Raid release. This feature will be backwards compatible with Lightfall Raid Adept weapons.
There you go.
So Master Raid will drop in Season of Defiance, it sounds like, and you can hold on to those weapons to enhance them.
In Season of the Deep. Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. But yeah, the big thing for me here, and again, this is kind of my talking about, like, one thing I want to see is, like, if they want to make, I'm totally for the idea of like making random drops like viable to crafted weapons and like bringing them back. But in turn, if that's how they're going to do that, I would like them to also bring some of that to crafting, because one thing crafted weapons do not have the capabilities of right now is having multiple perks on them. As in, like, you can't have a weapon where it has, like, 2 two, in the third and fourth slot for your perks, you can't have two in slots on a crafted weapon and select from either or. Where, like, if you can enhance a weapon, like, I think they have to make that available, unless they're just going to make it so they can't do it, because then adept raid weapons will have multiple perks, and they will drop with enhanced perks. Because because as of right now, they have the 4 perks on that. That's how adept raid weapons are now. So unless they just make it so they don't have 4 perks, and then they just give them 2 enhanced perks instead now, which I think would be weird.
I feel like they're not going to drop with enhanced perks. You have to at some point
enhance them, right? So, like, I'd be fine if, like, maybe how they put the limitation on that is to just have, like, hey, only 1 perk in each column can be enhanced. So you can't have, like, 4 enhanced perks. Like, I'd be totally cool if, like, that's how they want to, like, balance that. But I would really like them to, if they're gonna make random jobs being enhanceable, I would like them to make it so crafted weapons, even if it's like a thing where, like, hey, you're gonna have to level this up even further, this crafted weapon up even higher to whatever level to then, hey, once you do this, you got this level to like level 25. Now you can unlock, a second perk slot on this weapon, and then once you get to like 30 or 35, you get the next slots. You can have, two in the 2 slots, or 2 perks in the third column and 2 perks in the fourth column. If it worked like that, I'd be totally cool with it. Just like give a way to earn that on those weapons too. Would be really nice.
And as an alternative, a thing I've definitely wanted is, like, let me buy perma unlock perks for my crafted weapons. Don't make me pay to change them out.
Yeah, change the things. Yeah,
silly to me. I think, like, you put an ascendant shard into a slot, and that slot should have access to all the enhanced perks.
Right.
Right. Like, boom.
For sure.
Because just the way those materials are right now. So if it's not one, give me the other is what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And to be fair, like, the weapons are getting, like, it's going to be like less. We're going to have less of those currencies, so it'll just be like Glimmer to like swap to and from them. So, like, that won't be as bad. But I agree. Like, I think one or the other would be nice. And I think I personally would still lean more towards having the multiple perks in each slot, or at least just have the 4, right? Like, have like the 4 total, like 2 and 3, third slot, 2 and 4 slot, like most weapons can drop. And then you can just swap between them freely there, because then that'd be an easy way to just be like, all right, now I just have this gun, and I can have 2 PvE perks for the PvE god roll or whatever, and if I wanted to have the 2 PvP perks, I could have them there, or I could just have 2 other perks that I really like for whatever occasion. I think bringing those to parity would be really nice to see.
Agreed.
But yeah, overall, I like a lot of what they're presenting here for crafting stuff. Like you can have the scenario where, like, oh, I just have a random drop, and it's a really good perk. I don't want to go through the hassle of getting all these borders for it. Some people, that's a little bit too much for them. Now they can just go and try and go enhance it if they want to, and just have that gun and be good. Or if you still want to get all the red borders for a gun and be able to craft it, now it'll be easier, because then you can use whatever currencies or thing they're going to be introducing to put deep sight on a weapon. Will allow you to then just, like, deep sight whatever drops you're getting, even if it's not a red border out the gate. So, good stuff.
Yep.
Looking forward to all of these changes for sure.
Yes, agreed.
So that was like the first. So that was kind of most of the stuff in the bringing imagination back to Destiny. So now we are moving on to bringing challenge back to Destiny. So definitely some interesting stuff in here. I think this was definitely like the juiciest stuff, I would say, to me, which even though we spent like already 45 minutes on that first part, good Lord. That's how it goes sometimes. We're strap in, folks. This is going to be a chunky one. So basically, for bringing challenge back to Destiny, we already saw a little bit of that this season with Season of the Seraph and the Heist Battlegrounds. So they did like the kind of set note where, like, no matter what you're doing in a heist battleground, or what power level you are, the enemies are always 5 levels above you for that. So they are keeping that in Season of Defiance with the new battlegrounds introduced during the season. So this is where they more or less said, like, hey, there will be battlegrounds for Season Defiance activities. But they are also going to be using this set difficulty for the Neomuna patrol zones. So the Neomuna patrol zones will have whatever this modifier is, and now also the Vanguard Ops based playlist will also be tuned in this way. But they said they will not be as hardcore, I guess, quote unquote, as the Battlegrounds seasonal playlist is. So the seasonal playlist seems like from now on will have like this kind of base modifier and probably other modifiers that make it more difficult. Where I'm guessing like for Vanguard Ops, like I'm guessing it'll still have that same base where it'll be like, hey, this is enemies are always 5 power above you or 5 power at whatever power threshold they have, I guess. But I think there will be other, like, because I know the big thing with like Vanguard Ops has that you have like singe modifiers. Like I think you could still have that singe and you'd be way more effective when you're running that singe. And since like a big thing with, a lot of the build crafting changes are about synergizing in your specific subclass and energy type, like that would make sense to me, right?
Yeah, totally. And it seems like from the previews that we'll talk about later, the Neomuna could be potentially legendary modifier because it sounds like enemies have swords, which is kind of cool because it also, another tidbit we got from the previews later, is that there could be like an escalation protocol style activity there,
right,
which would make that activity way more intense.
Yeah, that'd be way more interesting. I'm definitely curious about that as well. But I like this a lot. I get some people were definitely apprehensive of seeing the challenge thing and like, already getting their pitchforks out, looking at Salt Greppo on Twitter, like, what is he going to say? What is he going to say? But it's like, it's like, there's definitely part of me as we get deeper into this that like, I definitely agreed to a little bit of an extent of him, although I would not consider myself like, world's first raid pro runner.
Yeah.
You could definitely tell the difference from back in Witch Queen when we, think about running freaking the Lightblade GM for the first time, and that felt insurmountable sometimes and just like horrible, where you fast forward to last season when it was a GM again, and I did it with 2 of my clanmates, and we beat it on our second try. It was such a breezier experience. And granted, we obviously know the strike better and know some of we know enemy spawns a little bit better. There's aspects about it, but we did not have a crazy storm grenade you could just throw into a crowd and it just melts everything super fast. We did not have, solar, all kinds of arc burns and like additional ways of now our arc, now we can move so much faster on arc because of killing stuff all the time and it giving us speed boosts and things. We just did not have a lot of the tools we did not have then that made us way more potent, and the way we could sort of abuse these new power sets with like a build crafting system that was not designed around having that level of power. Just kind of, I think, snowballed into us. So I think a lot of the changes they're making are kind of to will rein us back, but also we will still probably be pretty strong. So I'm ultimately for them, raising the bar a little bit to make the game a little bit more engaging, in that regard.
Yeah, and heists have been fun, and obviously, we love the legendary campaign, which was a similar philosophy, but a little bit more intense. It's just we're at a point, right, where so much is changing. Like all of our ability cooldowns are changing. We're getting a new subclass, and the base difficulty modifiers are changing, in addition to a bunch of weapon rebalancing. So it is so much that it's kind of hard to tell at this point what it's going to feel like. Yeah. But it definitely seems like, we both have been talking about how they have to rein us in at some point. This was like the fun year of Light 3.0 subclasses and us just being broken for a little bit to get used to those tools. And that's fine. I think that's fine. I know some people have been very upset about it, but I think it's totally fine because, I think it also makes sense to, now the narrative is switching. We're moving into the end game, if I may, and it makes sense to kind of up the stakes moment to moment to make that more narratively engaging as well.
Yeah, for sure. I agree for sure. I think that it's the right move. And hey, I'm sure people will still. It's still Destiny. People will figure out how to be crazy broken. You will still see within the week
we'll fine.
By like, I guarantee by the end of the first week of Lightfall, you will be able to go on youtube.com and see a Rick Kakis video or some YouTuber XY and be like, cracked build, this exotic is OP. Like, we're still going to get that.
This new world drop is like Recluse 3.0.
Yeah, exactly. Like, red arrows and just pog faces. Yeah, we're gonna get that. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, y'all. Like, don't worry about it. We're not. It's not going to be that bad. But again, another point they pointed out here with these some of these adjustments was another thing they brought up in general with this was like the general idea of power level. The power level, of course, it's definitely always been, I think even more so, like this came up a lot with the kind of the talk of, the game feeling stale to an extent in like the whole discourse and discussion around See the Plundered was like, it brought back up the power level discussion of just like, man, power level is just this thing we do and we've been doing it for so long, what we can do it. So while they said Lightfall itself will have a similar climb as the Witch Queen in terms of, we will probably, what I'm guessing is we will probably be jumped to like 1600 base for everything, and then
1820, right?
I'm thinking like we will go up to like 1820 or 1810 or whatever. So we will get to that, but post this season of the Deep, there will be no power cap raise at all. So that means once you hit the power cap for whatever this season is at the end of Season Defiance, the next season you'll be at the power cap already. So we'll see if they keep that. That'll be very interesting to see just how that season is set up in general, right? Because like think about we'll come into the season and be like, oh, we don't have to power grind, cool. So what do we do? Okay, I'll just go start getting weapon patterns and getting all the stuff, and it takes out like a big part of that. Like, but they're gonna launch a new dungeon in Season of the Deep, and we won't have to get up an extra 10 levels or whatever. That'll just be a dungeon.
Yeah, we'll be ready for Master Dungeon out the gate, right? In theory.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty crazy. So it's like it's gonna change a lot next season, and it's definitely gonna be like a little bit of a like shut up or put up and shut up moment even for the community of just like they have powers pipe in a particular thing because it keeps people, and to an extent, it keeps people playing and doing a bunch of stuff. Now, well, like without that, like what, like is it? Are people just going to be doing the things they want to do or doing whatever X or Y? Like it's really going to be interesting to see. And I think like another thing they talk about later, and this is like has like a similar sentiment for sure, for me. But yeah, interesting stuff. Very interesting for sure. We'll see that next season in Season of the Deep. But the next part they talk about is they talked a little bit about Crucible changes. Everybody's favorite topic, Crucible changes and Crucible additions. Nothing, even when they announce things, people will find something to be mad about when it comes to Crucible. So, hey, let's just get through it here. Season of Defiance is bringing a game mode back. It's called Countdown. I admittedly don't remember this mode too much. I know it was like a bomb mode. I think it was in year 1 of Destiny 2, and I think it was much more prominent in Destiny 1, but it was not around.
I think it was the Trials of the Nine mode, I believe, was Countdown.
Maybe
the initial mode.
I
played it for sure.
I think I played it too, but it was year 1 Destiny 2, so that was like freaking 2017, early 2018 maybe when I played that. So I don't remember it very well. I know it has like it does with like you're picking up a bomb and like taking it to a base kind of thing, or like you have to plant a bomb and defend it.
Search and destroy,
more or less. Yeah, and there will also be beside that Countdown returning, there will be a variant of it called Countdown Rush, where it says you have to like plant multiple bombs at once kind of thing. So it seems like it'll be a lot more fast paced. Like like when I hear Countdown Rush, I think of more like momentum control or like mayhem. So maybe it's like a variant of that where it's like it's supposed to be more chaotic version of that. Mm-hmm. There will also be a series of Crucible labs during the season with a more experimental mode that sounds a little bit more tactical and approaches use of weapon abilities. I didn't write down the specific name. They gave kind of like a temporary name.
It's like checkmate something.
Yeah, it's like checkmate control or something like that. Where basically it sounded like it was more about like you'd have your ability usage in your weapons would have like a little bit more limited ammo or use potentially, and you kind of had to. It was like a little bit more of a strategic mode. So that'd be interesting. I'll be curious to hear what people say of that. And like, hey, I know people again, we're going to get some of the other things they say after this, but like the fact that we're getting like essentially 3 modes here in a single season of the game is, I think, pretty big in general. Well, we haven't really gotten
Mike,
that.
they're not maps, so
yeah, throw it in the trash. But yeah, we also don't know if they usually bring new stuff with Iron Banner too, so I don't know if Iron Banner will be a new mode also, or maybe they'll just use one of the older modes, like they'll bring back the standard Iron Banner maybe for this season just to have it back for a little bit. Who knows what they'll do? But that's this season. They did talk about here's your dang maps, you crazy people. In Season of the Deep, so that's the season after Lightfall launches, or the season after Season 21. We're getting Meltdown. The Meltdown is returning. That was a Mars map from early Destiny 2 that was originally vaulted in Beyond Light. It's one of the. This is one I had to go look at an image, but then I saw the image and was like, oh, I actually remember this map because it's like the one where it's like a facility that like it's like a big, like it looks like almost like a mall, and then it has like the long walkways on the outside. I remembered that. I actually remembered that map. And that map, I actually remember that map being okay. I liked it more than some of the maps that are in the game now, at least. So there you go. Season 22. You are getting a new Vex network themed map. That actually sounds really cool. I love because I just like that aesthetic, obviously in Destiny, and I'm excited. There's some of that in Lightfall. I definitely hope they use it more in some stuff. We'll have to see soon what they all use it in for Lightfall. And then Season 23, which is the season before Final Shape, they're bringing back Citadel, which was the Dreaming City PvP map that was vaulted as well. I remember not liking that map, but yay.
I really like that map, and I still think it's a crime that it was ever sunset.
But yeah, those will be back over the course of the year. So basically, no maps this season, but it's a bunch of new modes. They also said, hey, there will be more modes and other stuff in these other seasons as well, potentially. So look forward to that. They also briefly touched on hey, we're gonna be looking at more matchmaking adjustments, finer tuning for better connections, and lobby balancing are kind of the things they want to focus on. They're also looking at meta system to get more people to jump into PvP that maybe wouldn't as much regularly. Good luck. Basically. I took that as maybe they were going to look at maybe improving some rewards and maybe improving events like Iron Banner, because they did say one of the big things this season will be Iron Banners will be 3 weeks out of the season this year instead of the 2, which would be nice. And hey, it's also good to remember it's a lot of information they've given the weeks, but remember they announced, I think was it 3 weeks ago, that there will be post game cosmetic rewards now in PvP modes. Across the game, and Focusy Legacy.
Legacy focusing. I got you.
Legacy focusing. I'm saying too many. I'm talking too much. Brain melting. But yeah, so you'll be able to go back and earn older weapons and older armor sets if you didn't have them already. So they are giving more incentives, and I'm very curious. And even me, again, who's not a big PvP person, as I will shout from the rooftops. But all this stuff sounds pretty all right to me. Especially
I will...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just the cosmetic stuff alone is enough for me as a weird sicko for some of that stuff, where I will probably just have moments where it's it's a mayhem this week, it's super, it's crucible bonus ranks or whatever. I will sit in this playlist for a while and just rack up a bunch of engrams now and then turn them in when I want stuff. So I like that, there will be avenues for me for that stuff, but I think for me, I don't know if there'll ever be a thing that can get me full in on PvP. And that's just, that's their, I think they probably, I'm sure they recognize that there will just be a portion of the player base that will just never interact with this in a meaningful capacity. but they still have to try and do their best for like the people that really want to. So it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've learned, and obviously take it with a grain of salt. I am still relatively casual. I like Destiny 2 PvP. I've decided. I know. What a sicko.
The podcast is over. It's done.
I'm quitting this show. Helm the Tower is done.
It's done.
Yeah, I enjoy D2 PvP. I see it for what it is, though, of like, or at least I not to sound too pretentious here. It's just fun. It's just good fun.
It's an extra mode you can do in this game that has a bunch of stuff going on in it.
Yeah, and there are like fun moments that can happen where you pop off and you get like a 10 kill streak, and it's like, oh, that was fun, and it's just dumb fun. Don't take it seriously. I know it's tough, right, when I'm in a skill-based matchmaking bracket that's like pretty chill, I would say. Yeah. Where all the low mid-tier players are, where we're all just, the matches take forever to play, but I'm making plays and having as much fun as I can. But I will say, like, I really think the weapons that they introduced to the PvP playlist this past year have been some of my favorites, like Out of Bounds and Riptide, both. I really, really love those guns. And I was happy to play PvP to get them. And they do a really good job in the playlist now of like whatever the new gun of that season is going to drop a ton for you.
Yeah.
And then the next season, you'll be able to focus it. So, go nuts. I think that's great. And I think they figured out a good cadence with that stuff. So yeah, I understand they had one sentence about competitive mode here, and that is not enough for folks that want to dedicate time to that.
Yeah.
But I'm tired of hearing.
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing it, but I would also say like they put that out like a season ago.
Yeah, exactly. They're still
like they can't like turn around like big changes you want for this like that quickly. That's just not how it works. Like you should know that by now. Yeah, is what I would say to those people.
Yeah, and especially the player base, like these things take time. I know people are very impatient when it comes to Destiny because so much does come out so quickly. Right? It feels like they're doing it in response to everything we're saying, but like we said earlier, it is always like this kind of precog situation where they have to minority report their way through what they think people are going to like.
Yeah.
And sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't.
Yep.
But like, I just like people always say that Bungie does not care about PvP, and I understand that feeling, but they talk about it every week. They are always talking to everyone that's playing PvP.
Yeah.
They care at the bare minimum. They care. They talk to PvP players, I would say, like as much as they talk to PvE players, just like in quantity of communication. How many TWABs do we have? Like a full section dedicated to matchmaking or connections or this,
And as we said at the top of the show, how many times have they talked about this? And how many times have they talked about in this blog? Have they talked about Gambit?
Yeah.
Goose egg.
0.
Goose egg. And spoilers, we have a lot more of this thing to go. You know how much they talk about Gambit? Goose egg. They don't talk about Gambit at all. So like, at a certain point, like, be happy for like what you're getting to an extent. Like they're putting 3 modes essentially out this season for like people to try out and for them to take feedback on if you like it and you don't like it. They've already planned out their maps for the season. There will be more modes. They will keep doing stuff for PvP in a way they're not doing stuff for Gambit clearly. So it's like, come on.
But anyway, I know you want more PvP maps, but Gambit has had 4 maps for like 2 years. And it's bad out there.
Yeah, it's rough in the streets for them. But to I would say a brighter note, moving on from PvP talk, we got the announcement that they are going to be introducing an exotic mission rotator in season 22. So that'll be the season after Season of the Deep. So season 22 will bring back some classic exotic missions that will be rotating each week for rewards. They didn't specify what those rewards are going to be. And since we are not getting a level cap increase for Season of the Deep, I mean, it's still technically possible. They didn't fully say outrule the idea of like season 22 might have a power increase or the one after that. So like pinnacles and other things could still potentially be a thing. Because I guess technically there could be a person that comes into Season of the Deep and is not played yet and needs to level up to whatever the Season of the Deep is. So I'm assuming a lot of the leveling up processes will still be in the game, right? It's just that you won't have to like do them if you're on level.
It'd be so funny if they're all gone. You just come in, you're stuck at 15, 18, 20 forever.
Yeah, you're just done. It's over.
I did have that thought of like, oh, this is an easy weekly pinnacle. I was like, wait, there might not be pinnacles anymore.
Yeah. But I feel like there probably will be. But yes, you're right. Like there has to be something more than that, though. At the same time, because there will be a bunch of people who will not be needing pinnacles by the time they get into this. So that's definitely a big question mark for this. And they said rewards. Like I'm hoping the reward isn't just like, we're going to take all the exotics that came from these missions and put them back into them and take them out of the kiosk. I'll be like, I think that would not go over well.
Yeah, for sure. No, but I do think this is exactly how you make DMT craftable, right? Get a red border every week, work your way to.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. You know what? That's
Harbinger is not listed here, but they've already, in multiple interviews, Chris Proctor has said that they are planning to make DMT and Hawkmoon craftable. To some extent.
Okay.
They were the play test for craftable.
That's a good point.
So that is something I can definitely see, at least on the Presage front here.
Yes.
I'm really curious what they're going to do with the Revision Zero catalyst just in general when Lightfall drops, since it's like 4 catalysts technically.
Yeah. I guess they'll be in the kiosk. Maybe. Well, I'm guessing it'll be because I know like now if you get a kiosk or you go to the kiosk or whatever and pull a weapon out, I think you just then go to Banshee and he'll give you like an exotic mission. It's like kill a bunch of stuff, and I'm guessing he'll you'll just have a bunch of those to get all those, I don't know.
The DMT and Hawkmoon catalysts got added to the Nightfall loot pool, right?
Okay.
So I think it'll probably be like that. Yeah, I wonder if you have to get 4 drops for Revision Zero. That'd be really funny. Probably not too bad because you just wait until you get the last one and you're set. You should get that gun, folks listening. You got a week left. Go get that gun before the season's over.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I mean, like Vox Obscura, I don't see any reason why I'd ever want to play that mission again. But
Yep. Yeah, I should say the missions that we'll be getting at the launch of season 22 for this mission rotator are, like you said, Presage is coming back from Season of Chosen as definitely an all-time exotic mission, so that'll be a good one to go back to. Vox Obscura, which I would say is on the other end, is maybe not the greatest. I would say it would be a lot more interesting if it didn't have that timer. That's where I would ultimately put that at for sure. And then from this season, we will get Seraph Shield back, so we'll be able to do that again. I think is a very good exotic mission. Yeah, and you brought up a really good point of just like, there's a lot of crafted weapons and crafted things tied to these things. And that's a great way to like bring back you'll be able to run Presage a bunch the week it's up and get a bunch of red border Presages or get the weapon pattern, because they haven't really done earning a bunch of red borders for a crafted gun yet. So maybe it'll just be you'll have chances it drops for patterns or something like that, or just the general pattern when the mission is up. So this is cool. I'm definitely here for it. Maybe they'll add more like other later game end game currencies to earn from that, like prisms and shards or alloys and stuff too. Would be really nice.
Throw some especially
if
there.
Especially if these come with like modifiers where you can do them on normal or master or legend tier. Considering some of those exotic missions have that now, right? I would assume that would have to come with that. Maybe you'll be able to do like a standard version of that and just run it and have a chance and then maybe there's like a legend tier that you can like squat up with people, and it's like a slightly harder version of that quest to then get better chances at rewards or something.
I'd love to see Presage get like a modern legendary difficulty as opposed to its like regular master mode that it had with champions and stuff. If they just did it like Seraph Shield, I would much prefer that. And that's a fun little like bring that back for Halloween.
Extra is
probably when this is going to drop.
Yeah,
that's a fun little spooky mission.
And And this is yeah. I like this overall. Definitely the big question was like people saw these 3 and then went like, and then they gave like a very coy like, and this will give us an opportunity to bring classic missions back from Destiny's history. So like they didn't outright say it, but like, come on, people, like who are like I saw a bunch of people like,
we'll get it eventually.
Where's Zero? Where's Whisper? It's like, relax. Of course they're gonna fucking bring those back. But like they're probably way easier to bring back because they've said multiple times where like as a lot of the stuff that was vaulted, they have to like essentially like almost fully rebuild to an extent. Yeah. So like that stuff will come. I'm sure, season 23, like, will be like, hey, this exotic mission is coming back this season. Like, it'll probably be something like that, where, like, now they have an extra thing to, like, hype up for a season where it's like, hey, this classic exotic mission is coming back. But they also said, of course, there will also be brand new exotic missions. So, like, those exotic missions would assumedly also be added into this rotator, maybe not go away. Maybe when Final Shape drops, they will not go away, right?
Like you bring 0 hour back with like a craftable Outbreak Perfected where you can like change the barrel and mag perks and stuff. I'll be there day one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. People would be pretty stoked for that. For sure. So speaking of more kind of the weekly grind, Strikes and Nightfalls are also getting a bunch of stuff. This coming with Lightfall and beyond, and I'm actually really stoked for a lot of these changes.
You wanted to know about this for so long. I'm glad we got info on it.
This was kind of one of the big things. Besides, like knowing, like obviously new Lightfall stuff, I was like, they said season or this would be a big refresh to Strike stuff and the start of that. And I was just like, yes, that's what I want. That's what I wanted for a long time. Because like, really, if you really think about it, like. I know, at least for me, and probably a lot of people in this game, like strikes are probably the most played thing in the game, right? Like at least that's how I am. Mm-hmm. So like there's a lot of strikes that are still their year 1 forms of Destiny 2, and we are now like in year 5, 6,
going on 6,
going on 6, and like we've changed.
We're gods.
We've changed a lot. So I'm glad that instead of just being like, fuck these and getting rid of them like they did before Beyond, like they're going like, no, we're gonna modernize these strikes to their current standards is how they put it. And so they are starting off with Lake of Shadows in Arms Dealer, and they basically said they are updating the enemies, they're updating the actual encounters and objectives you are doing in them. So they will essentially be like, I'm assuming that you will still go through the same area of Lake of Shadows, but you will have different objectives to do in these encounters. And like, hey, sickos who like, only this is like one of my pain points with Strikes is like, for so many years now, the idea of a strike has been boiled down to, I just need to get through this as fast as possible to get like a pinnacle at the end, and then I'm gone. When like this is one of the core ritual activities. So obviously for a course activity, you don't want people blasting through it. You want people to be playing it. So like I think Lake of Shadows in particular is probably not something you can finish in like 3 fucking minutes anymore. So like people are just gonna have to accept that now, man. Like I am on the other end of that. That's fine. Exactly. And I am fine with that because like I wanna like engage with the game. I wanna shoot stuff. I wanna like, grab my stupid fucking bounties because I'm a weirdo and do that stuff while I'm doing the strike. And having to like counteract these people who just want to like get in and just like, or like zoom in through the thing, or like, I've like barely moved on from the first area and they're like joining allies to the boss already, and I'm just like, what you just wasted my entire time. I get it, but also you just like you're kind of potentially wasting people's time in a different way by like just being kind of an a-hole in this thing. So I like that, tangent aside, I just like that they're updating these strikes to make them feel like new strikes. Like they used examples of saying like, we want these to feel like Lightblade and Proving Grounds, more or less. So I definitely
imagine a world where the Lake of Shadows boss is the most difficult strike boss room.
I can't, if they do it, I will like, pull up the gif of like the guy from I forget the name of the movie where he like stands up and claps really hard, because that would be an amazing move by Bungie to just like be like, all right, for all this time, this was like the joke of this playlist was like of Shadows, and like they probably have the numbers of like here's people playing GMs this week, and it's like, oh, it's this one, not being people playing it, it's Lake of Shadows. It's because it was so easy. Arms Dealer was the same way. Like our friend Nicole,
you kill the boss before you even get to it.
Literally just like the people in the community just call it Farms Dealer because it's like so easy. You can use it to farm stuff super easily. They're changing that one too, which makes a lot of sense because they were definitely they have been made archaic because of like all the new powers and abilities and things we can do. So the fact that they're completely refreshing those two makes sense, and like that is like honestly, I'm obviously very stoked for Lightfall campaign, playing Legendary campaign thing. Probably the first thing I'm going to do once we're done the campaign and streaming it and doing whatever is like going to the launcher and loading into like Arms Dealer or Lake of Shadows and seeing like I want to see him. I want to see like this strike I've ran since 2017. I want to see what it's new. Like that is very exciting in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like what is this? What does this mean now for this?
I threw out like the very ambitious idea that I don't expect. So don't expect this, but like, well, what if they added like Shadow Legion to Arms Dealer,
right?
Or Scorn to Lake of Shadows, like make it more darknessy and stuff like actually, and put we know Devrim K is part of the story of Defiance. Like he is VO for both those strikes. Like do some new VO, like update the story, like what's going on. I don't necessarily expect that. That would be cool,
sure,
right? But I don't expect that. But there'd be a fun way to incorporate the new enemies and stuff. But either way, Arms Dealer final boss has mechanics, right?
Yeah.
Like that you have never seen. You ain't ever seen Brockus get up on that tower.
Or he gets on it for like 2 split seconds because you just barely missed the one distance and then just jumps immediately and you murder him again. So it's like
exactly. It's
there are probably so many people.
Cool.
There are probably so many people have played this game. Yeah, and that's like gonna be a weird thing, right? Because there's been probably so many people who have now come onto this game so years later and like have no idea there's like all these mechanics to both of those encounters, right? Like I remember, like I think I was we were playing one night. I forget who it was when we did a GM Nightfall, and I said like, I was just like, oh yeah, and the boss has like the Lake of Shadow boss has like mechanics and encounter like changes to encounters, but you can just murder him so fast. You literally never see it, like where he like tethers you, where like when he makes the taken lake, so he like tethers you and then like potentially can like pull you into it to like try and kill you and stuff, and like don't ever see that
you have to take out.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a triumph for destroying the blights, and no one's ever done it. This is cool. And they had said that, what was it? Insight Terminus and what's the other one?
It is
Exodus Crash.
Exodus Crash.
Or being like soft sunset, where they're just not going to show up in the playlist anymore, but they're not being removed from the game. It's just a good middle ground.
Yeah, and they basically will be there so they'll be in the game, but you just won't really see them in the playlist until they get the updates to them. And those honestly would be the next two I would pick, because I think I think it's Insight Terminus specifically was like the D2 beta strike, I think.
Yeah, that was that's Inverted Spire.
Inverted Spire with the also probably going to be updated completely.
The drill,
the big drill one.
Yeah, that's definitely
going
to change.
Okay.
The Insight Terminus was the PS4 exclusive.
Oh right, okay. That's like you fight the big Scion at the end. Yeah. Both those need to change. Yeah. And that'll happen over this year. I'm super excited to hear that. But
the other thing feel about this?
The other thing, I'm also open to this as well, because now they are going to be integrating on top of this stuff. They're going to be integrating Battlegrounds into the Nightfall playlist and rotation. So with the Season Defiance, we are starting with the Mars Heist Battleground, which was just introduced this season. So there's going to be a Nightfall version of that. So that means get ready for Grandmaster Battlegrounds someday, y'all. Yeah, I think I'm okay with this just because, right, it seems scary at the moment, but you know, the modifiers make a lot of what those things are. So like, you know, we won't have the scenario where you will have like burns and singe like modifiers in this probably, because that's like a big thing with GM Nightfalls. So we don't really know what that is, right? I think Nightfall's GMs in particular don't feel as scary because, you know, obviously all the changes we've had, but like we also kind of know them by now, like especially people in our group who are like, I'm Gilded Conqueror 7. I've done pretty much every GM Nightfall that there's been in the game so far multiple times across the seasons. So like I kind of already know what to expect going into them. So like just the idea of like a new thing to learn, a new challenge is like exciting. Because we were obviously going to get that to an extent, because there will probably be, I don't know for sure if there'll be one new strike with Lightfall or two new strikes with Lightfall. Like having that again in general, I was already looking forward to. So now we have, you know, probably these remastered strikes, because they say later in the closeout kind of the talk of this stuff in Season Defiance, they said 4 of the 6 Nightfall rotations will be new or refreshed content. So it's still a toss up, because I think they intentionally word that way, because it could be a thing where like, hey, 2 of those could be 2 new strikes, 2 of those could be refreshed, or there could be 1 new strike and 3 refreshed things. Like we won't know until obviously we load up Lightfall on the 28th.
Seems like 1 new strike. That's what I'm gonna guess.
Yeah,
just to temper my expectations.
That's a good temper expectations for sure. But even
in Beyond Light, the year that we also only got 1 new strike, we ended up getting another strike in one of the seasons. So
exactly,
could come back around.
Yeah, for sure. We could get, because that year we got reprised. The 2 Cosmodrome strikes came back.
Oh, that's right.
From Destiny 1 with that, and then the following season we got a completely new strike with Proving Grounds. So I'd be totally like, there's also that possibility. Like you said, hey, now you got my copium up for Season Deep of all those remix strikes coming.
Oh yeah, dude,
that'd be cool.
Savathun's song. That's the one they know.
Went up Pyramidion. Sad.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Pyramidion.
Rest in peace, Pyramidion. Bring it back. But yeah, again, I'd be super stoked to see, like you said, if we come out like a few weeks in, if we get to Grandmaster Week and it's Lake of Shadows and it's turned into like Light Blade all over again, where it takes like 30 clears, I would be honestly, I'd be fucking ecstatic, because that's a master play by Bungie in a way that I totally love.
Super troll.
I would totally love that. Just like, well, you talk shit all these years, community, take this, suck it.
Yeah, talk shit, get shot.
You're gonna have to spend. You're gonna die in this Like a Shadows boss room. You're gonna spend that time that you didn't spend melting that boss in that boss room. Now you're making up all the time, being stuck in that boss room with him now. That'd be
At
really
least
funny.
You got
amazing
the grappling hook for the damn part. It's gonna be a little less
True.
boopy, hopefully.
Yeah,
with
hopefully.
The grappling hook.
Yeah, that's definitely a hope for sure. But another thing they
Last
said.
name.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's one more point for this, and that was
that's right.
Kind of the thing they talked about, like over the course of the seasons, they're going to be like kind of refreshing the ritual playlists overall. So you could say they kind of were talking about Gambit here, maybe. Hope. That's the hope you get for Gambit. Because they talk about ritual things across the board, right?
Yeah, if it was getting new maps, though, I think they would have mentioned it.
Exactly.
Just, keep temper those expectations.
Yeah, I'm expecting. Yeah, it'll just be like, maybe you'll see a Gambit Labs and some
be sunset
stuff.
Maps and stuff. Like, could be stuff like that we might get back. But even then, I really don't know.
Yeah, but they said there will be stuff over season to season. They said the season right before Final Shape will have a larger focus on that. On top of that, so expect like the bulk of a lot of bigger changes in that season. So I'm assuming maybe that's where we see a bigger influx of different content for a strike playlist, like maybe a lot more Battlegrounds or other things that season. Maybe we'll get
more updated
strikes, or maybe that's where we get our new strike potentially.
Yeah.
More PvP changes, like maybe, I know this will probably upset a lot of people if we don't see changes to comp before then, but maybe like more massive changes to the competitive playlist and the ladders and stuff will come there.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll see some reprised Gambit map or some Gambit changes then too. So
God willing. God willing.
But this is that was all good news to me. The strike stuff, that's like stuff I wanted to hear the most for a while. Is like they're updating all that content and going back through. Who knows how many they'll do. I'm hoping honestly, after a certain point, it's basically almost every strike, probably maybe up till Glassway.
Yeah.
Like just do all the ones pre Glassway. They update all the year one ones, and then maybe update Warden of Nothing, and then maybe even corrupted a little bit. I
can see Scarlet Keep also not getting updated.
Sure, actually, I wouldn't mind if that one was though.
Hey, I wouldn't either. I'm just
make the honestly all they really need to do is make that elevator sequence faster, and I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, like half as long. Honestly, maybe even just a third as long.
Yep. For sure. But the last part they go into, which was connecting our guardians. That's basically the fourth pillar here. And this mainly talked about, in Lightfall, we're getting commendations and guardian ranks, which they go over a little bit more in depth in the Vidoc, so we can probably just talk about that stuff there to an extent. But, they kind of worded commendations are kind of like the icebreaker. Like, let's say you have like a really good, run of a strike, or, you LFG'd in a dungeon or whatever, and like really had a good time. You can, throw commendations to people. There will be commendations for different activities. So there will be like trials unique ones, raid unique ones, and stuff like that for people to get. I'm all for that stuff.
Are you worried about accommodation farming? Do you think that is going to be a thing?
It really comes down to like if rewards are tied to this, and it doesn't seem like they really are. Like the only thing it'll be is like it'll be like, I think they said like you will need to do commendation stuff for guardian ranks, but I can't imagine that's like too much, especially now we'll get into guardian ranks and how they work, because we learned a lot about that in the previews, and like that's definitely like going to be an interesting thing, because I think it's like part of what they said it was going to be and part of not really at the same time, but we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. But that was ultimately what they said. Like another thing they wanted to do is like, look at chat and stuff and update more chat features and have a lot more open like text chat to people, which like is good and bad. Which is good and bad. I know like we are predominantly like console Destiny players, but I know it's like with my clan we play on PC a lot, and we still use that a lot. And it has like pretty good uses when you can, let's say, like mainly what they use it for is like, hey, when you have like call outs, like, hey, it's like, when you have like, think of Deepstone when you do that first encounter and it's like L2, L3, like light 1, light 2, light 3, somebody can just type that in the chat and then it's just there in the chat so you can see it at all times more or less when the chat pops up. Mm-hmm. Instead of having to like, call it out a bunch of times and like try and potentially calling over some person's random tangent about something, think how many times that's happened, So there are definitely good uses for text chat, but obviously that potentially also brings, more people into the fire for, people being shitty online. But at the end of the day, they still said there will be a way to opt out of it and turn it off anyway. So, I don't think this will be that big of a deal, and I think it could open that up to more people for use, which I think is cool. But of course, the last thing, the big piece of the puzzle is Fireteam Finder, which is their in-game LFG. It is still coming, but we did learn, unfortunately, in this that it will no longer be beside the reprised raid in Season 22, which I think they maybe have said this before, but this was like more official confirmation of like, hey, reprised raid Season 2022 or Season 22. I'll say quick one. Quick one. What do you think? Are we just is this Wrath? It's Wrath, probably.
It's not Crota. I don't know if it's Wrath. I think it could potentially be Scourge of the Past.
Yeah, I think the one thing I will say that's interesting about it is like if you think about it, like the big thing with it is like every raid that they could bring back at this point, the exotic is already in Destiny 2. They would have to make a new exotic or maybe bring an old popular D1 gun back, but how many of those are left? So like that'll definitely be interesting.
Guess, except for Crota. Crota's auto rifle exotic is not in D2, but nobody like loves that gun.
Right.
It doesn't have like the fanfare. It could be Leviathan. Like if you ask me, the thing I'm thinking of is like, what are the guns that I would want to craft the most? And I would want to craft Ghost Primus the most.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So yeah, Leviathan could be good. I assume like we're gonna deal with Callus in Lightfall is my guess. So it'd be cool to have his raid back in the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could definitely see this being a D2 reprise raid over Wrath. I feel like I would love Wrath, to be clear, one of my favorites of all time. But I just feel like
I can see it going both ways because I definitely agree with you. Like realistically, I would rather just have the base Leviathan raid back with all those weapons craftable, and like updated perks and like an origin trait. But I could also see them going like, well, we already did the 2 other big raids from Destiny 1. Why not complete the trifecta and just bring Wrath over? And now their Wrath is in. So I see the case for both, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm
right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm here for either, and we know it's coming now, which is cool. But yeah, basically back to Fireteam Finder. That originally was planned to launch with that, but now it is no longer, and it's going to be in 2020 or the season 23.
Season 23,
with the new dungeon that'll be a part of that season. That's the season right before Final Shape. So that is what it is.
Probably December. Yeah.
But, and that is what it is. But I think they gave good reasoning why they did that, because they said like, we want to make sure a lot of these tools they want this to be a first in class LFG tool, which I think that Destiny definitely does need. And I think it also
the features they listed. I was like, yeah, you would want to wait for these for sure.
Make sure they're all good. And I think a big thing with it too is like this gives a lot of time for them to make sure commendations and guardian ranks is good. Like this gives them, I think this gives them a bigger buffer to be like, hey, if this stuff launches and like the community has like a lot of problems or things we need to like fix and kind of tinker with in a later season, now we can do that and have that stuff be more ready for when we have LFG, and like commendations and guardian ranks will very much play into that LFG system, because you can see that kind of stuff at base. I'm sure you'll be able to see that stuff in a way through that LFG system to like show like, okay, this person is guardian rank whatever. That means they're pretty competent, or maybe even already run this raid or run this dungeon, or knows their stuff.
Yeah, and
so it makes sense.
I know LFG is a very hit or miss situation, and I don't blame anyone out there for not using it. We're very fortunate to have like a bunch of friends across like 3 different major groups, like your raid or your clan, and then we have my clan, the What's Good Guardians, and then like a third group of folks that are just like friends we've kind of grouped together from LFG, weirdly enough. That we just have a lot of people to play with, so it's never really an issue.
Yep.
But I will say, like, I use the LFG app like all the time. I use the Destiny Companion app to find a fire team. It's not bad. Like, there's plenty of like no mic experiences you can have out there just to get like legendary heist done and stuff like that. Just
pretty,
to get it
pretty
done.
basic stuff you can knock out fairly easy in LFG.
Yeah,
for sure.
So if that's like what people really needed for this, I get it. Raid stuff. You gotta make sure that stuff is right. You don't want a guided game situation.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we made it through 90 minutes here, and the state of the game.
That's all the blog stuff.
That's the state of the game stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, because they're talking about Destiny from, now for the next year, because we were literally, like we said, Fireteam Fighters, the season before Final Shape. Before we get in the Vidoc, I do have to make one quick tangent about all this stuff. And I also want to hear your thoughts on this of like, they talk a lot about, and they talk in this Vidoc too, of like, Final Shape is the end of the Light and Darkness saga, but Destiny is going to continue after this. And, that's being interpreted so many ways, right? By like, what does that actually mean? What is this happening? Like, I think something for me that I want to say here on our podcast, now we have this podcast in my tiniest of tiny little platforms here to talk about Destiny things, is please stop. I'd say please hedge your bets on them doing Destiny 3. Everyone, people in the world, please,
chill.
They're exactly to my exact point of they are not going to take the time to refresh all this old content, add a rotator of exotic missions that they're going to continue to bring back post that, and also introduce LFG systems the season before this final expansion and then just stop. You know what I mean? They would not make all this time. They would not start making up ideas of we want to have all these different ways to have different styles of seasons to go on. They wouldn't be thinking of that kind of and making those changes if they weren't going to keep making seasons. We weren't going to have a season 25 or 26 after the final shape. So, just want to put that out there that if you're expecting the final shape to come out and then just kind of go quiet on Destiny 2 and maybe just do a couple seasons and then, here's Destiny 3 and, start jumping on that. I would not expect that.
And also the people that are asking for that, is that really what you want? You want to lose all your guns again?
They are not
lose all your armor again. No, it's not. They've done this subclass rework, all this stuff to make everything modular, right? There's certainly some engine level things that probably need to be changed, and I could see them totally spending a full year just updating stuff and doing more minor things before then launching into a new story. But it's just Final Fantasy 14 last year, 2 years ago, Jesus, ended their story, and they're working up towards a new thing, and they're taking their time, and they're now after Endwalker came out, they in the patch the seasons that 14 does afterwards, each season they're updating the campaign of the other expansions. So they did Realm Reborn in 6.1, they did Heavensward in 6.2. I could totally see Destiny doing a similar thing. Hell, they're already doing it here, but imagine them fully unsunsetting the Red War and fully Jesus Christ,
Forsaken.
Now it's my turn. Forsaken coming back, and all those strikes and destinations coming back, and finding a way to bring back all those seasonal activities to make Destiny the platform that it should have been. Help, maybe even bringing back Destiny 1 stuff. This is Destiny's here to stay. I very much see in the future, after Destiny 2 Light and Dark is over, them maybe rebranding the app to just be Destiny and just going. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't already done that. It's just kind of a Destiny 2.
I think Final Shape is going to be the moment they do that. I think I agree with you. Kind of what I'm expecting is Final Shape's going to happen. The story's going to end. And if you expect sometime later this year, they will have the Final Shape presentation, and they're gonna sell that. And I think the thing that'll show it is you're gonna see that, and they're gonna be by this bonus edition, it's gonna give you 4 more seasons, and you're gonna be and then people are just gonna be wait, what? And then no, it's because they keep making stuff for this game because it's doing so well. Again, I think I've said it on previous things. I don't think I've said it directly on Helm Tower. My working theory, and again, this kind of is, I'm immediately pulling this out of nowhere, out of my butt, more or less. But the thing I look at is Fortnite, where Fortnite does they have a whole year, and then they do a new of seasons, and they do a new chapter each year, and that new chapter is a huge engine update and a bunch of other updates. In particular, this one, I think it was this is chapter 4, whatever, was you saw the visual upgrade and update. They did a massive engine update. I think that's what's going to happen. Where we're gonna get Final Shape, then we're gonna have another year of seasons, and then whenever the new saga starts, it is not going to be a whole new game. It is just going to be a thing probably layered on top of current Destiny to make it more make the whole engine feel more modern and updated, while still having everything else that was from Destiny 2 in it. So there'll still probably be a framework of Destiny 2 here, but they will probably be a lot more it'll probably look way better, maybe way more better certain systems in some regards. Like I feel like they would just not spend all this time making the kind of features they're making this year and to suddenly abandon it. Like even a year later, like they just not feel like it does not feel like they would spend the time to finally make an in-game Destiny 2, a game that launched in 2017. They would now finally make an LFG system in 2023 just to like finish it a year. It'd be like, no, we're done, and we're done. Yeah, see you later.
And sunset all of the content in it, right? Like, no, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Especially them saying like, hey, we're not sunsetting expansions. Like, I think we will more soon get a Destiny 2 classic, like separate launchable, than we will get Destiny 3. And that is also a huge stretch.
Yeah. It's a good point.
So yeah.
But yeah,
that's fine also.
Yes, that is fine too. But I just wanted to say that. And like that was
good call out.
Definitely a feeling I had after reading this state of the game, and like, them constantly saying, like, even as Vidoc, like, this is, we have the final shape coming, it's the end of Lightning's Arsenal, but Destiny 2 is not going anywhere. Like they keep saying that anywhere, and like I get that's kind of like them being coy. They don't want to talk about it because like in some ways that gives away like what could potentially happen in their last expansion. And the story, I don't think they want to give that away, but like I think this, by the end of this year, I would really like to like have a better idea of like, yes, just tell us, like, you need to be flat out with people, because people keep making up this myth, and it's going to become bigger and bigger bubble of like to burst of people like sitting here being like, yep, Destiny 3's next, we're getting Destiny 3, like you're gonna move on to a new thing, baby, it's time. Like that bubble's just gonna slowly get bigger. I already see people like talking about that like it's fact, and when it's never been. So, but anyway,
yeah. They very, very much moved away from that vision with Shadowkeep, and they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on that. So yeah.
Yep. But yeah, no Destiny 3. That dangerous. It's done.
Everybody in the comments, Strandglaive and Destiny 3 is dead.
Destiny 3 is the dead game. Destiny 2 is not. Yeah, that's what you want.
Destiny 2 lives. Destiny 3 dies.
But yeah, moving on from that, we're not done with this week, by the way. A lot more to talk about still. Good Lord.
We're about halfway done, actually.
Yeah, more or less. But we got a Vidoc as well this week, which is a big video they usually do right before a season. It's kind of the hype builder of like, they usually get a bunch of Bungie developers to come on and talk about like kind of all the stuff, and that's what this was. They talked more about Strand. They showed more Strand gameplay. They talked about Neomuna. They showed the Cloud Striders. This is where we got more details on Seasons of Defiance. Like you said, like we learned a little bit more about the story. So I have a bunch of notes here, but I do want to say this at this point, we will think there's potential talk of like spoilery stuff, I think, because I think this was like the first thing I watched, and I was just like, oh yeah, I think we know some stuff now about what's going down in Lightfall. Even in like the first 90 seconds of that video of that Vidoc, you learned some stuff real fast. Like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, the tone has been set. Let's say, so for sure, if you don't want to know anything now, you can peace out and no hard feelings. We're also going to talk about the story finale at the end of the episode, and there's definitely going to be some speculation there that you might not want to hear. So
for sure. So yeah, thanks for you're already an hour 40-ish minutes of us already from this, but yes, we're gonna talk about the Vidoc and talk potential story spoilers from here on. So you've been warned. So basically, we saw a lot of new cutscene stuff shown, and like mainly stuff that seems like things that are like, I would say probably is like within the opening of Lightfall.
Yeah. I do like that I don't feel like we've seen past like the second mission, and I think that's pretty cool. Yeah,
I definitely get that vibe for sure as well. So basically, we see a shot that pretty much opens the trailer, and we just see the Traveler on one side, a couple small tiny Guardian Vanguard ships fly up, and then a massive fucking fleet of pyramid ships littered through the sky in the opening sequence. You're just like, okay, well, there you go. That shows you the difference of like, what we're up against.
Protect the traveler at all costs. It's like, all right, it's bad.
Shit. And then you just see a single pyramid ship just do like a little like, it looks like it just farts. And it's like a little yellow wave. And you just see red
orange wave.
You hear I'm down, and you just see a big red flashing light in Zavala, and all the characters are in that. It looks like they're in the helm and in like a CG trailer. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah okay. There's clearly some shit is going down that's probably not good immediately out the gate for us.
And they tweet out Season of Defiance promo art, and the tagline is "Defy the Witness." I'm like, oh, this is gonna go well for us, probably.
yeah, exactly. And so you see that, and then you see a couple shots where like I don't know if it's like right in this moment, but I think they have like a little quick sequence where like somebody's talking about the witness, and you just see a shot of the witness like arms crossed, nonchalant, like they're saying they're very stoic,
floating through space.
Yeah, floating through space, and it's like a destroyed ship. Like it's like nothing. You're just like, okay,
clearly you can just like do that in space, going right toward the traveler. Like he's gonna touch that thing within like the first 15 minutes of this campaign, probably, and it is all going downhill from there.
But it's all going downhill. And then you see like another quick shot of like two ships just like hyperspacing out and just be like, whoa, we're getting the fuck out of here. So I'm assuming one of those was probably the helm and one of them was something else. And then, we've seen the shot in multiple trailers of like our Guardian, like grabbing on to like a ship is going through hyperspace and we like grab on to like the edge of it to stay on it. And then we like fall down into the ship itself. And that's probably like the start of the actual first mission, I bet, is like us inside one of those Cabal ships that's like hyperspacing to Neomuna or whatever.
Which is awesome. By the way, super hyped for that.
Yeah, it
seems
could potentially
really cool. Be fighting out in space on top of
that'd be really
ships
cool.
As well,
like, we like jump around on the ships and stuff. Yeah, and like clearly, like so my vibe in general was like you said, like we saw the witness probably going towards the traveler, like is clearly edited in a way that like something big happens in that moment. If it is like the witness touching the traveler or the traveler just being like, oh, you guys couldn't fight these guys at all, peace, and it actually does leave. Like we thought it was gonna like we see in the finale potentially. But who knows what happens? But they clearly like cut around that CG scene to like not fully like spoil probably what the moment is there, and then clearly whatever happens, and everyone just goes, oh, we're getting the fuck out of here, and like you just see like they basically just abandon Earth. What it kind of seems like, and that's what like Season of Defiance seems like it is kind of about, as I'm like maybe it's like, oh, whoever's left on Earth is kind of just like left to their own, so to speak, until hopefully
Devrim K finally climbed down from his tower.
Yeah, climbed down from his tower to like have probably the first voice lines he'll ever have since like 2017.
Yes, so hyped though. I'm so excited for Devrim to be back.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious what he's been up to, for sure. But yeah, so that
I also want to ask, cutscene wise, we get some good shots from your boy, big boy Callus. How are you feeling seeing
Callus
him in all his glory?
Callus looks awesome. I love his big gold arm. He has like a gold arm and his
gold foot,
and he has like all his like crazy. He has like a bejeweled body almost. He has all these crazy symbols all over him.
He's got toe rings.
He has a big. We've seen some of the art already where he has a big bucket hat. Yeah, he looks. I like his look a lot. He looks really good. I think Itenchi looks very boisterous, and I'm excited to see probably I don't think it's too much of a stretch to assume we're probably going to be fighting him at some point in that campaign. I'm very curious to see him like with, freaking, dark powers or whatever it ends up being, whatever the heck
he's going to be able to shield, do. That's what he's going to have.
Oh, shit. But yeah, very cool stuff. We see another scene of like Kaido rallying her troops on Neomuna. She's obviously there. She wants to, take Callus down, so like she'll probably have involvement in that as well. Definitely curious to see that as well. But they definitely had a good setup of like, they kind of talk about all these moments while they're flash cutting to this, and they're just like, oh, but what are we gonna do to stop this? And then they cut to like a Neomuna shot and like a Guardian like reaching up to a big green strand pillar, and then they start talking about strand stuff. In those shots, I saw a cool call out. You see a very, very quick glimpse at Osiris also using Strand, which, makes a lot more sense from that previous trailer where he's like sort of like mentoring us, and he like says like he's like naming Strand and like talking about Strand. So clearly he accesses it somehow too. So obviously we won't know that until we actually get into the, that's probably going to be like one of the first early missions. I would bet. But like you see him like,
and it does seem like he's the Strand vendor, because there's like a preview shot that shows him standing on Neomuna just hanging out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we will.
Member.
I was gonna say, yeah. So second. We will, and I was supposed to call out. We will return to that shot because there's a lot of things in particular in this Vidoc.
Oh, that's true.
There's a shot in particular where there's a lot of things you can see, a lot of details. So we'll definitely bring that up again. But yeah, it's like basically the quick shot you see is like he has like these like look like they're like dice, and he has like his hands, and he's like and he has like green kind of strands coming out of his fingers. So like he clearly has that power as well. So that's very interesting as well.
I'm just saying the Bungie devs clearly played Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, and Strand is sick. And the Weave of Fate is like one of my favorite D&D concepts ever. It's actually a big part of my D&D campaign that I'm running right now for IPD&D. Nice. Go check it out. So it's like, oh man, Destiny just gets me. Destiny actually is like the huge inspiration for the plot of my D&D campaign. So excellent. The fact that they're like getting into the weave is getting like so weave,
the web of life, the threads of life.
Yeah,
they definitely called that out of like, yeah, we wanted to do something that was very Destiny is what I think.
Not poison.
They just like dunked on a bunch of people like, yeah, not poison. So that was fun. But yeah, we got a lot of really good throughout the Vidoc. We saw like a lot of really cool Strand stuff. I like that we actually like this was kind of the first time we properly saw like from like our character point of view. Like we straight up saw like what the Titan melee looks like from this point of view, like what some supers look like. Using like what some of the Strand supers are like from that point of view, grappling and throwing stuff, throwing like tangles and stuff. A lot to call out there.
Tangle cooldown,
yes,
as well.
Yeah, we saw that in one of the previews. You can see like a guardian throw a tangle, and then you see like I think it's like a 15-second cooldown. It says like tangle cooldown. Yep. So that makes sense because it seems like it's like if it were a thing where you can make 1 million of those, and like the power of those things have where you can grapple to them for free. Like I think that's like a fair thing to do there. So the things I want to call out, like because I mostly was writing stuff down while these moments are happening, is boy that hunter super looks insane. Mainly that heavy attack. You see like there's just like some shots where there's a heavy attack, and that range on that thing, like it covers like that
big diameter.
That's like almost as big as some of those PvP maps. Have fun with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope that's a double hit on PvP because that thing whips fast.
Yep.
Not the light attack, but the heavy.
It's like a heavy attack. Yeah, it does like a big spin and flip at the same time. It looks wild. I like the Titan one. Look, they showed some Titan super gameplay, and that looked fun as well. Where it straight up shows like you shoot the big laser blast with the heavy attack, and those look like they can travel pretty far, and that can suspend dudes. I wasn't sure if like this was like how people were talking about in previews made it sound like, and how he put it in there where he's like combo indefinitely. That makes it sound like the light attacks like don't eat your super, but I was thinking maybe that's just like, I think they more so just meant like, with some
you just keep going.
Yeah, like with some supers in the like I think of like the stasis one, like he does this kind of like a big lunge, and you just kind of have to keep doing it again. Like it's kind of slower. I think they just more so meant like you can like mash it and you like move really fast and keep doing it rather than it just lasts forever and it doesn't take energy, because that would be insane.
Because like it would be. The whole idea is the light attacks make the heavy stronger or charge it up. I wonder if you do like 90% of the meter on light attacks, then do a heavy hit, if it's like a huge damage hit. That'd be kind of cool.
Maybe see potentially how that is. And on top of that, of like you do those hits and that like severs them, so it weakens their damage and stuff. That's still like an aspect of that as well. It's gonna be really cool. They showed the Warlock one as well, which is like a Needle Storm, which still looks really cool. And I think they pointed out in this that we hadn't seen yet already, which I thought originally, like when they first showed it, seemed like you had to get kills with it, and those kills would turn into the threadlings. Where they show in this where like you don't even need to get kills with it. The needles will just like shoot and then stick into the ground, and then they will eventually turn into the threadlings and then run around. So like you could essentially just like do it and not even like hit enemies with it, and then just have it become threadlings, and then you just have a bunch of threadlings running around. So like that's pretty cool and interesting.
They also showed some of the other things that we hadn't seen from the Strange trailer, including the warlock aspect, that mind spun invocation with the grapple, where if you grapple to an enemy, it'll pull threadlings out of them. They show that with the grapple melee in the trailer.
Nice, yeah.
Looks super fun.
Yeah. We could see that too, and they also showed that like what unraveling looks like as well in some of those. I think that's what some of those shots where you could see like there's like they'll grapple onto somebody, and that grapple melee does a thing, and like you said, I think there was one shot with the threadlings, and they also show like it. Like the unraveling does too, where it shows like these little like green looking like spikes kind of come off, and they rotate and like kind of like continually around. They look like the similar to like Outbreak, how Outbreak works, where it has like the little like Siva darts, and they kind of like are like tracking around and hitting them. So it's cool to like see that visually, for sure. So so that seeing more of that stuff visually was like Strand is looking more and more impressive by the minute. On top of all the crazy grappling sequences we saw in this too, where you straight up just show a scene where there's a thresher like flying through the sky, and the Guardian's just hanging on for dear life, like being like thrown around on a thing. We see a Guardian grapple onto the back of a sparrow and kind of like zoom around a corner, and then let goes and does a grapple melee into a bunch of enemies as like the person the sparrow keeps zooming by him. Like that's fucking cool as hell.
So cool.
We saw like somebody throw a tangle, like and they're like on the other side of this like big arena, and like throw it, and somebody grapples. Like the grapple has like pretty crazy range from the looks of it. Maybe that's just because it's like maybe that's like a tangle interaction where he tangles to it, he like grapples to it and like flies across this big arena into a big fray that's happening in a different area. Like just the application of all that stuff looks super cool. I'm pretty sure we also saw we saw a brief glimpse of like the hunter aspect, and I think some of the footage too, where like it makes a grapple point for people, where like he grapples to something. I see it's like in a quick shot where like the hunter grapples onto something, and you see like from the grapple point, like another green one just gets like it kind of like pops off of it, and like it'll just and it just kind of like stood in place essentially, where I think you make like the initial like grapple like grab or whatever. However it works, I think basically from wherever that point was, it makes one and just keeps one there for a period of time. So that's kind of cool.
We saw that my dream, which is somebody on the sparrow, somebody grapples to the sparrow, drives past enemies, and the person grappling to them just punches out of the grapple into those enemies. Yeah. I was like, yes.
Yep. It just looks really cool. I'm very, very excited for it. The more we've seen of it, so I'm stoked. From there, they showed off a little bit more. They talked a little bit more about Neomona. Showed a bunch of cool concept art. They gave us the names of the Cloud Striders, which I don't think we've had yet. Which is we have the old grizzled one, Rowan, and then we have Nimbus, who's kind of the young, cocky one. And they kind of showed them.
Love Nimbus.
Yeah, they showed them kind of briefly in some early cutscenes where Nimbus is just kind of playing around and messing with like a ball, showing up and being cocky and like rolling around on their hoverboard or whatever, and Rowan's just like, Nimbus, quit fucking around, blah, and he's like, this old man.
We see the Tormentor like go after Nimbus, which was cool.
Yeah. So and we also learned that there's like shots of them and they look super tall, and it turns out they are actually just huge fucking tall people,
10 feet tall or whatever.
They're like absolutely massive people, or persons, whatever. I guess they're cyborgs or whatever they kind of ultimately are. I'm sure we'll learn more about
enhanced humanoids.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll learn about that. And showed just a lot of. On top of that, they just showed a lot of really cool shots of Neomuna. There's a lot of really cool like things I weren't expecting, like just like graffiti art like all over the city. Like they showed like this mural of former Cloud Striders, assumedly, and then we saw another one. Our friend Ren, who was going to be playing with us in the on the day we streamed the Lightfall campaign. They showed that there's this really cool big art of like, it's like a giant zoom in of like an eyeball iris, and it looks like the Traveler was like inside the iris, kind of in an interesting way.
Yeah,
it's just a bunch of
stuff.
Cool stuff. They pointed out one of the lost sectors is an arcade. So you're just like running through an arcade and fighting Vex, and they show a lot of gameplay of that, which is really cool. In that gameplay, we see more of the stasis waveframe grenade launcher as well being used in that gameplay, which looks really cool. Yeah. So yeah, it looks really cool. Like the other thing you mentioned that like there's we learned in previews from Neomuna. There's a couple things we learned in the previews more about Neomuna as well, so I'll bring those up here. There's some kind of, like you said, there's some kind of either escalation protocol or Altars of Sorrow style activity going on in one of the zones. The people who went to like a Bungie Lightfall preview thing said they kind of saw it going on in the background, but they did not, like, the person doing the demo did like not go over and do anything with it, so they don't really know. People don't really know what it was, but it seems like that was like a thing that goes on in one of the zones of Neomuna. And I remembered from the article, if you scroll down the article, they describe something called terminal overload. So I'm curious if that's what that is. We'll just have to wait and see, because we didn't really learn from that or what that is exactly. They said that Neomuna as a destination is about the same size as kind of some of the previous ones, like the Throne World and Beyond Light, where it's kind of like it's 3 major areas you can kind of wander around and patrol, but then of course there'll be like lost sectors and like other smaller like side areas that are probably tied in with like, you know, story missions and things like that. So like there'll probably be more areas we have clearly not seen and explored around in, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm totally cool with that. Some story stuff we learned, it seems like at least some of the origins of the Cloud Strider came because apparently Vex have been on Neomuna this entire time. It was not a thing where like the Cabal showed up and the Vex are with the Cabal for some reason. It's just that the Vex had been on Neomuna this whole time, and the Cloud Striders were kind of initially formed to combat them. As we learned some aspect of that. So maybe, you know, the origins of the Cloud Striders may be entwined in a similar way to Exos. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
Could be very interesting.
So. And Siva, whatever was on the Echo 1 and Echo 2 that came, the old school Siva evolved into the nanotech that they use, right. It seems like. And yeah, I'm really curious about this Vex stuff. That makes me feel like they are not a faction with the Witness, right? Because then the Witness would have known about Neomuna.
Exactly, yeah.
And I was talking with a fellow Destiny 2 writer, Sania Ahmad, who had a couple of great interviews, one on Wired this week and one on GameSpot, I think last week, with the devs, talking about Vex. I feel like they might be setting Vex stuff up for post-Final Ship. Which is
cool. I can see that for sure, because they can do so much with them, because they are this like they are these robots that can
Enigma, you know.
Yeah, they're Enigma, and they are like, you know, the main thing we know about them is they can move between like time and space and dimensions and stuff. So like they can do anything with those. Like they can send us back in time for some reason with them, or not, or do other things, like go somewhere completely different. A lot of potentials for that. Another thing we learned is like why, you know, people have brought up, like, you know, they brought up in trailers where they say like, you know, the Cloud Striders are protecting the people of Neomuna, but when you look at a lot of shots of the in game, there's not a lot of people going around. Well, there is a reason for that, and that's because they are uploaded digitally. We got this right, Alex O'Neill. Remember we guessed this. That's right. And one of the previews they talked about, the people of Neomuna are uploaded to a thing called the Cloud Arc, and they are basically in a digital version of Neomuna, like being safeguarded in like a digital version of Neomuna where they can't be attacked. I hadn't heard this. So now they are basically, you know, I guess we are in Neomuna proper. I guess that's gonna be the big thing, right? I bet I wouldn't be.
That's what the Vex thing is.
Maybe that's what the Vex thing is. Like maybe they're trying to get into that cloud version, or maybe we go into it. Maybe like that's like the raid. Like maybe we go into the digital Neomuna to like do the raid,
space.
or maybe it's even bigger twist. The Neomuna that we've been seeing this whole time is the digital Neomuna, and then we for the raid go into the real Neomuna, and like something else is completely insane is going on in that real version. Because people pointed out like the very ending shot of this whole Vidoc is like a lineup of 6 guardians, and people are taking that as like usually when you see that kind of lineup in a nice shot like that, that's usually like the opening of a raid, and that is overlooking the city of Neomuna that they see that. But it has a very different look to it because it's like daytime and like bright version of Neomuna, where like this version is like definitely been like a lot more darker. And granted, there's a whole, so maybe this is like, it could just be like post like a war, like the war has ended, and maybe that's like what Neomuna looks like now. The bigger battle conflict is like done or whatever. But I think that'd be cool as hell, though, right? We go like we learn that we've been like the digital version of Neomuna this whole time, and then we were like jacked out, Matrix style, to like go into the raid or whatever, and like turns out Neomuna like had this other stuff, like had fallen long ago or something like that, like something crazy like that. That'd be really cool.
Man, I'm so excited for the lore of this fucking expansion.
yeah, that sounds cool as hell. I love
especially like
all the insane cyberpunk stuff going on in this.
It seems like we're gonna get like the Witness lore this expansion, and then probably finally get the Traveler lore in the final shape.
Yes,
and I'm just so excited.
Yep. And the next another thing we learned was that we saw more Tormentor stuff showing off in this. Or they were talked about them more, and like basically, they showed off the big thing with them is like they can like grab you and like drain your energy, and they have a bunch of crazy scythe attacks. They showed this one where it puts the scythe over his head and spins it and makes this crazy void vortex, and then like leaps up and like does big slams and stuff. It looks pretty wild. So I'm really stoked to fight those. The thing we learned in the previews, however, is there are apparently multiple kinds of Tormentors in this. So like it sounds more like there will be like boss tier ones.
Tiers, yeah.
But there will also be like smaller ones. Like I think the big differentiator is how they said they described it to them was that like there would be a tier where like you could freeze them with stasis, basically. Mm-hmm. But there are some that like you shoot them and it'd just be like a boss, and they don't give a fuck, and they just will keep doing their thing. So it seems like I'm hoping it's not just a thing where it's like, oh, this is an orange bar Tormentor, this is a yellow bar Tormentor. I'm hoping there's maybe a little bit of a slight differentiation between like what the capabilities of both of those are, rather than just like this one is tankier and doesn't get affected by stuff, and this one does. So we'll just have to see. So that's pretty cool. So let's see then the show Season of Defiance, which you've already kind of talked about. Like I like the premise of it overall. Those like Lightfall is they kind of said it's like it's the war on two fronts, and more or less is kind of the vibe they're going for, where you have the big battle with Callus and the Witness on Neomuna, but then Earth is left defenseless while this is going on, and like there's still Cabal and Witness pyramid ship stuff on Earth. So now like humanity is kind of in the fray, and like you said, Devrim's back and he's in the battle. It seems like they show a quick scene of Crow and Amanda Holiday and even Mithrax too, like helping out like human refugees escaping. So it seems like there'll be a lot of characters involved with the season, which is pretty cool. And obviously in the key art we saw Mara.
And Petra.
Petra. So it seems like and like we know all like the Queen's Guard stuff, and Marsaw's involved. So like seems really cool with all that stuff going on.
Dude, I love Marsov. I just love everything they've done with her story in the last year since Season Lost, and like the stuff that the conversation she's had with Elsie Bray throughout this season, and just kind of like
really good
setting up that relationship with Crow. I am like so excited to see where that goes. Yeah,
I'm definitely excited to see more interactions from her and Crow, because we have not really seen that since then. So there's definitely a lot of interesting stuff shown, because like we saw that. We see a shot of like this like a pyramid ziggurat looking structure that we've really only seen like in Beyond Light on Earth in like looks like in the EDZ. So that's kind of wild. Like I wonder if that might just be one of the Battlegrounds, maybe. I
think so, but still,
we'll have to see. Yeah, that's still just pretty crazy to see that for sure. We see
It'd be cool if it was like in the EDZ for Patrol Zone and their new public events.
Yeah,
there.
that'd be cool, for sure. We saw like kind of the theme for like the armors and the weapons for the season as well. Like we saw in the key art, obviously there's like this crazy looking like kind of like pink and white and gold like knight looking armor for a lot of the classes. But there was another set shown that looks like it's like red and black, like crazy robes. Like initially, like it looked so wild that like people were like, "Whoa, is that the raid armor?" That's kind of was my first reaction, because how wild it looks. But you see in a later shot, when we see like what we're getting to next, which is like the loadout and kind of build menus, you can see like they have that armor on, and you can see like it's from the season, so it was probably just one of the season armors. Like either like it'll either basically that the one in the key art will be probably the ornaments for the season pass. This might just be the base armor you get from the season, which would be pretty crazy. That's the armor. It's pretty cool.
The armor team is killing it.
Yeah, for sure. Really cool armor for all three across. We haven't even seen like I've said that'll be fucking raid armor. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I know that there's armor we haven't even seen yet. Yeah, some of the best.
So that'd be pretty cool. They showed a lot of the weapons do look like they are like updated versions of the Season of the Lost weapons. We've kind of seen some in some of the shots in this Vidoc, but then again they go into a lot of the footage we've gotten either from the Vidoc or from like preview events showed like stuff in menus, and you can see like there's an auto rifle that is basically like the auto rifle from Season of the Lost, but it has that updated kind of look for this season. There's a grenade launch. There's like a special grenade launcher. There's a sword that looks like the sword from the 30th anniversary, but it's all like crystallized, like the seasonal weapons.
It's a solar sword that can get incandescent, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. We learned from some of those menus that sword can get incandescent. That grenade launcher that I said can get volt shot, and then there's also, as we know, there are strand weapons coming, and we learned from the preview events. We could see names of things in menus in some of this footage, and we saw strand guns with a perk called Hatchling. So that is probably your strand perk. Probably have something to. I'd say Hatchling sounds very like the Threadlings.
Threadling like.
So very curious how that will all work.
I bet it's
cool
like
stuff.
Headstone, where it's like precision kills spawn hatchlings.
Spawn like a hatchling or something. Yeah, I'd be cool with that. That sounds pretty cool. We saw what else? What another weapon saw? I think we saw another grenade launcher, heavy grenade launcher that will also come from the season.
We still haven't seen that special grenade launcher that you called out from the CG trailer. I am curious about that.
Yeah, what that stuff looks like. Very curious as well. So what else? So basically, yeah. Here's a big one that I kind of talked about earlier. Is there's a shot once the season stuff closes out, they do a shot that's kind of like a big thing in the Vidoc is that they have these kind of like little text overlays when they kind of start a new kind of set of talking points, and they had a thing that said it's a defying our end. And it's a big one. This is a big one. So like. If you pause on that shot, I timed it out. What time was that? That was 11 minutes 27 seconds.
11:27.
You see a lineup of Guardians with a bunch of stuff. This is also where we mentioned where we saw like Osiris is a vendor on Neomuna. He is actually in that shot in the background. You can just see him like those arms crossed behind all the Guardians. So the main thing to point out is the Titan is front and center. They have a new exotic stasis bow. On, or at least we're assuming it's an exotic. It very much looks like one. We can straight up see
we see the name,
the arrow. So we see the arrow in it is just like a big stasis crystal in the thing. That Titan is also wearing a helmet that looks like to be a new exotic because it's not like any armor we've seen before. It gives me very much stasis-y vibes. It even has like a big Clovis Bray logo like on one of its like on the top of its head. So that's pretty cool. Something I also noticed on that freeze frame that I didn't see anybody else pointing out, but if you look at the Hunter and look at its legs, it is not the Neomuna set. It does not match that Neomuna set that that it has. If you go back and look at other footage, like the Neomuna set kind of has that blue tealy look where like the pants have like a completely different color and visual look to them. So I'm expecting
You're right.
that is a new hunter exotic as well that we've not seen. So besides all the strand ones we get, which we saw in the strand trailer and they talked about more in this Vidoc as well, I'm expecting that is the other hunter exotic of some kind.
Yeah, I think the Warlock might be wearing different boots.
They look like the Swarmers to me, but I could be wrong.
They don't have the eyeballs on them.
No, the eyeballs is the eyeballs is the Titan one, the 3 eyeballs.
That's probably my confusion.
Yeah. So I couldn't notice anything about the hunter, or the Warlock rather. But maybe I'm missing something there. But that's what stood out to me in that shot was exotic bow.
Yeah.
In 2 new armor exotics potentially.
You have it written here in your notes, but once we see the Guardian ranks like Triumph system, we can see the exotic bow is called the Vergless Curve. It's probably the seasonal exotic.
Yeah. Either it'll be a season pass or maybe one we unlock through this like some kind of exotic quest in the season. We don't really know for sure because like you said, we see a shot of the Guardian rank system when they start going over that stuff in this kind of whole point. And you can see there's one of the Guardian ranks tabs of challenges is Season of the Defiance. And you can see the quick thing where it just says it might just be acquire or use it to get kills.
Defeat enemies with the Vergless Curve, yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be a part of getting your Guardian ranks. So this is the big thing with it because now we can see that the seasons are involved in the Guardian ranks, and this is something we learned. They didn't explicitly say in this, but we learned throughout the previews is that Guardian ranks reset each season more or less. So basically, at least from what it is right now, basically you will reach rank 6, which rank 6 is like your basically kind of your sort of baseline point. Which they said that's where a lot of Guardians who have played the game previously will start out as, and then I think it goes from 1 to 6, then it goes from 7 to 11. I think
11,
7 to 11 are basically going to be like what I think they called them advanced ranks, and those will involve things that come as a part of seasons. So it sounds like you'll essentially be reset to 6 each season, but then depending on what stuff you've done throughout the seasons, you will probably be able to level back up quickly. But to then reach like the highest ranks, you will need to do things that are more directly related to seasons. So as in like, hey, this season's going to have a new dungeon. You need to like complete the dungeon or do challenges that are tied to the dungeon to like get this Guardian rank that are like tied to this particular like rank 8 or 9 or whatever. So like it seems like, that'll be an aspect to Guardian ranks. And I'm going to be honest, like initial thoughts, I don't know how to feel about that because that feels pretty counterintuitive to the idea they pitched Guardian ranks as, right? Because like it's supposed to be a way to like showcase like, hey, because I am Guardian rank this, I have surmounted all this stuff. And I understand like, they need to have a way to keep the new stuff coming out relevant. But I feel like can they just keep making the rank higher? But I guess maybe they don't want it to be like you're getting Guardian rank 50 and somebody's starting at 6. So I guess like I already am getting the vibe that maybe like we're getting a very early iteration of Guardian ranks, and as soon as they start figuring this stuff out, they will probably have to make a lot of changes to it. If like their current thing right now is just like we're going to be just resetting it over and over again, because that makes it feel like it's really will not actually matter. Like at some point as much as we think it will, or they hope they want it to, right? Because then like if it's just resetting every time, it's like, all right, you'll have people later in seasons who are like higher Guardian ranks, but then they're just going to be 6, and like they might hit Guardian rank 11 in the second, like the last like couple weeks of the season because of that's how they did all their stuff, and then just 2 weeks later they're just going to be set back to Guardian rank 6 or 7 or whatever. It's like, well, what's the point of that, I guess? But I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think again, like that's just like assuming things. Like we don't know for sure if how much it'll reset each season because we'll just have to wait and see. But At least that initially just like rubs me the wrong way a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. It's also like a thing where your guardian rank's going to be what is next to your name. It's no longer going to be your season rank.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see what you're saying. Like the idea being that everybody kind of gets reset back to 6, so new players don't feel super left out. And when they see someone who's like ranked 10 right out the gate, they're like, oh, I should, ask that person for help. We'll see. My concerns are like they said that unlocking loadouts is tied into guardian ranks, and they did say some of the later ranks, parts of them will be semi-permanent. So hopefully that includes loadouts. I'm sure they wouldn't like, oh, I worked for hours to unlock 10 loadouts, and now it's a new season, so I have to unlock the last 4 again.
No way.
I really hope
that.
They don't do that.
Yeah, that would be insane that would be truly insane if they did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's more like the seasonal challenges. It's like seasonal challenge like things are so folded into guardian ranks that it's like as you just do seasonal challenges, you'll just immediately be back up to where you were. But like you said, then what's kind of the point? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's definitely a wait and see kind of thing. Because I will say, like, criticism aside, like the baseline ideas of guardian ranks, I do like. Like I do like this idea of like, seeing the season pass number has been useless for a while. Like, I'm season pass rank like 300 something, and like that doesn't matter to me at all. And like it really seeing other people's rank does not matter at all. Where like I feel like seeing guardian ranks could potentially be more impactful, right? Like you said, like, oh, I'm doing this strike with a bunch of people who are guardian rank 10 or whatever. I know like this should be a competent go through of the strike rather than like I see guardian rank. I was doing a strike the other day where I was guardian rank 20, and then like the person like dead. I feel like they were a person who like literally had never played this game before. So I was like, it's like also, an interesting spread. So
guardian ranks are supposed to effectively be a quest log for folks that don't know what to do. So like you're reset back down to 6, you go and check like, oh, I got to do this, this, and this. Start moving yourself back up, and those this and this things that reset are probably going to be like do the seasonal activity, unlock the seasonal weapon, use the seasonal weapon. So I think on some level, making you have to engage with it is going to be helpful for new players.
Yeah. Having that engagement for sure, and like giving them a direction of like to start for sure is good. And I do like that. Like it is essentially like taking triumphs, because I think they said like triumphs will like factor like your triumphs will still be there, but they will factor in some way. I don't know exactly what that meant, but like just the general idea of like like make triumphs feel a little bit more like to have a bunch of fun ones that are like side things, and they do still get you like occasional rewards, but like I also make them more integral to learning the game, because I think like having gone for titles and seasonal titles and seals like give you a better way to like learn getting more in depth in Destiny stuff, right? Like that's definitely how I've always felt about it. Like once I started going for that stuff and learning more in-depth systems, like that helped a lot with that. So I'm thinking that's what they're trying to like find the balance for, is like having this system introduce players to that rather than just like the very basic stuff of Destiny. And so I think there's definitely good stuff with this. Just few pain points. Just reading that stuff is just like we'll see. We'll just have to see.
There's a lot of we'll have to see in Lightfall.
yes, for sure. On to a more positive thing though. Loadout stuff all sounds really good. For everything we saw, like they showed,
like literally one bad part about it. That's not even that bad.
Yeah, it's not even that bad.
You can't send stuff back to the vault.
Yeah, and they also said they will probably add that later at some point. They even like reiterated that in some of the preview stuff where you can see it in the Vidoc, and it's definitely like a pretty quick flash that I noticed, but then like didn't really fully collect until I started reading previews of just like, oh yeah, when you just hit a loadout, it's instant. Like you just see it in that Vidoc of just like a person's on a loadout, they just hit one, and you see your Guardian real time just change to a completely different armor set, and everything change in their loadout. Like they said, like it will pull stuff from the vaults if you save like weapons in a loadout in a vault. It will pull them from the vault onto your character and just set you up in that loadout. You can do it at any time in any activity that isn't equipment locked. So like if you're just running a strike and just want to swap to a different thing real quick. You can do it. You can even do it in a PvP match. I think people will hate it, but I'd rather just be able to do it flatline across the game because for that ease of use.
Yeah, at least the playing field is even.
Yeah, and it makes sense that you won't have you can't do an equipment lock stuff because that's how equipment locked works. Makes sense. You won't be able to do that in that. Yep, fantastic. Sounds awesome.
So excited for
yeah, it's gonna be great. That's really good. So the last thing for that, so yeah, Guardian ranks loadout sounds great. Commendations, another interesting thing that we saw in this footage that I saw was pointed out by streamer Leopard, the most above average Destiny 2 streamer out there. He was kind of like watching it with his with like kind of his stream and stuff, and he pointed out in the commendation screen that you can see at the end of a Valve Disciple raid. You can see in the commendation up in the corner, there's multiple things you can tab through. So there's I think it's the first one is summary, which is the screen they're on now, because you can see it's selected, which is the commendations. But there's another tab that says final results. So are we finally getting a way to see damage done without wiping in this video game? Is it
rest in peace to wipe for damage?
Wipe for damage. Is it finally happening? Now, we'll have to see if it's like, a full result of all of the encounters, or maybe that's just that final encounter. Like, again, we did not see that screen, so we do not know for sure. But potentially could be really cool if we can just tab from that summary screen to another screen, and it just has like, hey, this encounter, here's your damage, here's all the damage everybody did, here's all the things people did. You can see like real time like what people were able to do in each encounter. That'd be really cool. And it would make sense for like that commendation system. Like you can tab to that thing and be like, oh wow, this person did that much DPS or was doing this and this encounter. That's really cool. Here's your commendation for that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love accommodations.
I really hope that really works.
And if not, like, it's definitely a thing that if they have that screen set up, they could potentially add down the line, which is good. Again, building the framework.
For this to last, 100%. For that, they kind of get into like the closing talk. And one thing two things I want to point out that was like, again, I had that my tangent of like, one of the ladies who works on Destiny was talking. It was like, hey, final shapes the end of Light and Dark Saga. Destiny's not ending. But she also said this year will be the 10th year of Destiny. So do you think we will get some kind of, I think what would be cool, and this is just kind of throwing out an idea, 30th anniversary for Bungie was a very popular release. Do you think we get a 10th year kind of side little expansion thing? Or maybe they do some kind of special 10th year event in-game for that and bring back a bunch of stuff. If you think about it, this would probably be season 22, because that would be a fall, right? Because it'd be September. That's when Destiny 1 came out. So that would probably be season 22 when we get a reprised raid. Bring back Wrath. Bring back a bunch of classic Destiny 1 stuff all together in a season. 10th anniversary celebration.
I like it. Yeah, I definitely like it. 10th anniversary.
I'm sure that would get a lot of people. That would definitely get your weirdo. I'm a D1 alphabet baby. I really know to talk about Destiny. Destiny 1 is still better. It's like by the time I want to tell them to shut up, but like I'd be down for that still.
You know what they'd bring back after all this time?
Sparrow racing.
We
heard you. We're not bringing back Wrath Machine. We're not bringing back this. We're bringing back Sparrow Racing. Tier, baby.
God, could you imagine? People would be hyped, though. I'd be hyped. It'd be a really funny troll as well, just objectively. I would love it. A 10th anniversary pack. I'm just trying to think. They'd have to bring back a bunch of D1 stuff, and I'm trying to think what they would bring back.
At this point, because they brought back so many. Maybe like a bunch of exotics that like have like, because I feel like armor exotics, like there's some armor exotics still left from D1 that haven't like come back again and again. I think like completing the D1 raid, big raid trifecta, bringing back Wrath, I think would be hype for people. And then maybe since again, Outbreak was the exotic for Wrath in D1, right? So maybe they pull another popular D1 exotic weapon that people have not seen and bring it back in the game in this fashion. A lot of options.
Yeah, I'd love that so much. I mean, it's going to be a great year. I feel like this is just going to be the best year of Destiny years in general, just because it's like
a lot of really exciting
stuff.
A lot of really exciting stuff for this year, for sure, from all the stuff we've talked about today. So that was mostly the Vidoc, but again, like I said, some other things they shouted out, because like alongside the Vidoc coming out, they did a like Lightfall preview with a bunch of content creators and like different like outlets and stuff like GameSpot, Paul Tassi, Rick Kakis, a bunch of people in the Destiny sphere got some look at Lightfall stuff. So this is like I try to like do my best to collect a bunch of that stuff and talk about it here in this last bit here.
Good call.
But basically, here's all the things I got from so more stuff from previous strand weapons we've seen so far. So here's all the strand weapons I've seen from footage. You can see there was a Neomuna SMG that is strand.
Hype.
Neomuna large machine gun that is strand. This also is hype. This also has the hatchling perk because we can see that machine gun like equipped in some of the B-roll footage. There's a strand sniper and a strand hand cannon. So those are all the Neomuna strand weapons. The origin trait for Neomuna is called a nanotech tracer rockets. So we don't see what it does, but we see that name again they show like a load. It's very clearly from this loadout menu, and it just like says all the names of the perks, and you just see that. So that very much sounds like Quicksilver. So like the legendary Neomuna is gonna have like Quicksilver rockets on them. That'd be nuts.
Love it. Love it.
Like I said, the new strand perk is called Hatchling. We just see the name of it, so that's pretty exciting. And then again, like I pointed out earlier, or we talked about earlier, Defiance weapons we see in some menus, Sword with Incandescent. There's the GL with Volt Shot, and also that auto rifle I talked about earlier was a strand auto rifle that has that perk as well. So that's pretty cool. There's a Neomuna Void Shotgun with a new Void perk that we now know is called Destabilizing Rounds. Probably pretty we know what that probably does. And we learned about that. Yeah. We learned what that was because of this week in the TWAB we saw a Void Glaive, which is going to be the weapon, the seasonal weapon drop. What is it? The pursuit weapon or whatever it's called for the playlist. Ritual weapon. Yes. It'll have another perk which I immediately forget. It's like something crazy. It's like something Aegis.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what that is.
Aegis something.
Yeah, but it's a void glaive that looks pretty cool. So we saw that. Let's see what else we have. One thing that I saw pointed out on Twitter.com from people, there's an interactive trailer that also came out this week. God, there's so much stuff that came out this week. So in that interactive trailer and in the Vidoc, people noticed that there are some shots in it that are very that are straight up things pulled from Destiny 1 Venus. As in like there's like when you would know better than me, I briefly played D1. I would check this link.
Shot.
There's a shot of this there's a very particular statue that's on Venus of like the angel with the staff, and there's a shot of that in the Neomuna interactive trailer that is shown, and there's another shot that's like this doorway that's being opened up that is like matches the door on Venus, a door that's like all like grown over on Venus. So people were wondering what that stuff is about, like, or maybe is like we know Vex are on Neomuna and Vex are on Venus, so maybe there's some time stuff shenanigans going on Neomuna 2 or something, or maybe just maybe because that like wasn't the whole thing, was like these were like Ishtar buildings or things that were on Venus, right? That was like the whole thing. They're like the Ishtar Academy. Maybe there's just an Ishtar Academy that was on Neomuna, and we're just seeing like that again and that's just like, the Ishtar's the whole thing is that maybe an angel or something. Who knows? But it's very interesting for sure, to say the least, though, right? Like that'd be very interesting.
I remember like when I was combing through and doing my like trying to figure out any secrets in there, that weird door opening is extremely suspicious to me.
Yeah. Definitely some. I'm sure there's like a lot of mysteries on Neomuna we have no idea about, right?
Yeah. Love it. God, imagine if there's like a Vex portal that goes to Venus, like just temporarily. God,
that'd be pretty wild. Or maybe we just go back to like, maybe it's like Mars or something, where we have the Enclave. Maybe we'll just for some reason have to go to like a chunk of Venus for some reason. Who knows? And there's
game.
That'd be cool. Very interesting for sure. We also learned, I think this is from the Fanbyte preview. They did a preview as well over there. We're invited to this. We learned what the Strand champion counters are. So apparently there's another buff tied to Strand. They call it out as a buff, so this is not like a weapon perk, but there's something called Unraveling Rounds, and that counters barrier champions. So we don't know how it's procced, but we don't know. I didn't see it in that article anywhere, but there's something called that. The other thing is suspending counters unstoppable champions, which makes sense because you're suspending them or locking them up. And then, like we mentioned earlier, the other thing I saw was Tangle has a cooldown, which you can see in some of like the B-roll gameplay where they I think it's like a Titan like throws a Tangle, and then they're like melee and fools, and you can see like in the little kind of debuff menu area, the menu like the buff kind of cooldown area, you can see it has like a 15-second cooldown or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was kind of it. That's everything I could pull out. I'm sure there might be some other little details out there. I know we saw, like, the thing I didn't call out here were like mods and stuff. You definitely could see names of like mods and some general ideas.
Tons of mod stuff.
General ideas of like that stuff. I know you pulled up something. I mean, we can go over it a little bit.
Yeah.
We're definitely getting.
I can knock it out real quick. We don't
deep
have
in here,
to...
but yeah, we can get a little. I think it would at least be worth shouting out some of that stuff.
Yeah, it seems like because I was like going through Reddit, looking at the Veil lore theory, so we'll talk about it in a second.
Yeah.
And I stumbled on a great post. Someone like went like painstakingly through all of B-roll available and like categorized what the mods for this new system seem to be like.
Yeah.
There are the blue mods all seem to be like universal passive mods. Some of the ones we see are like a leg blue mod that gives you like increased mobility while you have an armor charge, and having this mod equipped now causes armor charges to decay every 10 seconds. That's a really cool idea. It's one for each stat, it seems like, which is really cool. Yellow mods, which we saw a couple of, the specifically the one we saw was like melee kickstart, is something where this will consume an armor charge if you have one. So in the example of melee kickstart, consumes an armor charge. It consumes all of your armor charges, and it's twofold, right? More armor charges means more energy. More melee kickstart mods stacked together will also mean more energy, but diminishingly. So like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That, like you could be building yourself up to 6 stacks of armor charge and 3 melee kickstarts and getting your melee back instantly every time you got 6 stacks. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then the last one is just passive benefit mods. And these are green. And these are things like stacks on stacks, and powerful friends, radiant light, time dilation. So these will modify the armor charge system, not in a way that provides a passive buff, but just like do things like you get 2 armor charges for every orb you pick up instead of 1, stacks on stacks, which no longer has a stat deficit, by the way, but it does cost the same. So yeah, stuff like that is really cool. I think like that's a really good kind of three color system. So you've got passive bumps,
much more readable.
ones that consume charges and ones that will give you benefits while you have charges, but will cause them to decay.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I like this system a lot. It seems.
Yeah, and definitely noticed like you can see in some of the footage if you pause briefly, like you could see like what they talked about in the build crafting thing, where like it seems like a lot of it is elemental based or like weapon based, and it's not like, I saw like, there is like kinetic weapon surge and void weapon surge, where it seems like that is like your damage boosting things now, rather than like, the other stuff like that. So
and like it's like special ammo scout, boom, all special ammo, and like heavy ammo scout, and kinetic reloader, so like you just reload all your kinetic weapons faster. Harmonic reloader, you reload all of the ones in the same class you're on faster. That's so nice.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's good. That's going to be very interesting for sure. Yeah, and we'll see that stuff soon enough. I feel like that's that's a good parameter for that. It sounds interesting, but that's just going to be such a big thing to unravel, as it were, on Lightfall day one. But yeah, that was kind of the big news in terms of Lightfall stuff. But we also had the season finale of season of the Seraph this week, and that was quite a big deal as well, I would say. And was really cool. I would definitely consider it the best finale of a season we've had. I definitely saw a lot of people saying this was like the best season, Destiny 2 season there's been. I don't know if I would go that far, but I definitely would say, like, in terms of like
it's
ending,
up there.
It's definitely, this one's definitely up there. I'd say overall, if we were ever like rank them, I have to think more about that, but I would say this one's definitely still be pretty high. But I would say overall, though, this is probably the best finale we've had to a season.
Certainly the most expensive one that they've made.
Yes. Yes. Because, you kind of started off again, we said at the top of this thing, spoilers. So, if you're still here, you're in it. You're in it.
If you're still here and you didn't play the finale, what are you doing?
Yeah. You're already in it. So let's just get into it. So basically, we get into it, and, it seemed like some things that we kind of were predicting and sort of talking about and theorizing in previous episodes were Rasputin's probably going to have to sacrifice himself by the end of the season for things to happen. And it turns out he's going to have to go ahead and do that. Because as you learn, Aramis has taken over the like Seraph shield station, and now is like basically going to shoot the Traveler with it. She's kind of gone sort of rogue, I guess, so to speak, and is kind of doing her own thing. So you kind of, you basically, the play through this final sequence where you like you run through a sequence of that Seraph shield mission. You hit a point. You actually fight Aramis there for a brief moment, which is kind of interesting.
That was cool.
Definitely a surprise moment where you're just like doing like the side platforming, and then you just get up to this like airlift, and also Aramis is just standing there. You're just like, oh shit, okay. So it wasn't like a big dramatic battle by any means, but it's just kind of, she shows up, and then you shoot her for a little bit, then she runs off. She locks herself away into some part of the Seraph shield, so you then go to the place where you need to upload Rasputin for him to, basically stop this sequence from happening. And in order to stop the sequence, he needs to self-destruct it, which will destroy. He needs to be self-destructed, more or less, kind of.
He has to destroy the whole Warmind network, himself included. Yeah.
But yeah, you basically fight through this thing, and you get to the kind of the boss room of the Seraph shield mission, and you fight a hive, like crazy hive looking lady that is called the Scourge of Earth, which is I learned from Bife after reading that, like the big lore implications of that, of like when the hive have that title, that means they are the ones who like destroyed that planet essentially. And that's why they're called that. So she is basically, that's kind of just to show you, like, he really pointed out, like, that's how high the stakes were at that moment. Because, like, that, they only send that kind of person when they're ready to, like, fucking, wipe out a planet, and wipe out a race.
Open the gates of hell, so to speak.
Yeah. So that's kind of the boss you fight, which is, at the end of the day, was still, like, a pretty familiar boss fight if you remember way back from the Forsaken days, that kind of weird hive queen lady boss. From that one strike. but it was cool. I still had it. Still was a cool little mission. And then once that ended, we got a CG kind of finale cutscene that was really, really awesome. It basically,
I was very emotional during this cutscene.
Yeah,
mostly because, like, obviously the sacrifice, the vibes, the feeling. I was in it. I'm very invested in Destiny, so it just gets me in my feels.
For
but
sure.
like, we've seen the Traveler do anything 3 times ever. And anytime that happens, it's like, oh, this is a big deal, right? And I love it when the Traveler does stuff, because it is so purposefully vague that you get the crowd that's like, fuck the Traveler, and then you get the crowd that's like, no, he was trying to protect the last city. And I love that. I love that there's just no clarity.
There's no clarity. That, like, you don't really know what the whole deal with is that. And
that's the point.
That is kind of the point, for sure. You're right. But yeah, you kind of have this brief moment where, like, the mission ends and you hear, like, a bunch of characters come on comms and go like, I feel this weird feeling, this presence, and I feel like a heartbeat.
Osiris,
just like,
I feel nothing.
I feel nothing. Yeah, it's pretty good. And then it cuts and you see, like, a bunch of shots of characters in the last city. You see Crow on top of this building taking off his hood, looking at the Traveler, and you see, Zavala and Ikora standing in the tower, and like a bunch of other characters. And you see,
Guardians in the OG D1
armor,
start screen armor.
It's pretty good.
So cool.
Yeah, and you see the Traveler, just like, a big glow comes around it, then it starts slowly going up into the sky, and then everyone's just like having this moment is just like, wait, what's happening?
It's happening.
Yeah, and then, like, you see Mithrax and his daughter, and like, and you hear Aramis go, it's happening again, the whirlwind. So she thinks, the Traveler is leaving in this moment. And, like, since you hear this line, like, that's never going to happen again. And she warms up the war sats, and like, you see them, like, start opening up these lasers. And then the Traveler, like, kind of is up in the sky, and it stops as these lasers are coming on it. And you cut back to Anna and Rasputin talking, and it's like, yeah, it's time. You need to do this. She pulls the plug, blows up all the things. You see the light, all the lights glowing, all crazy stuff. What happened? Then it cuts back. You see the wreckage of all the Rasputin warsats and the Traveler just standing there. And then it just stops. It just stays there. And then
we just like incredible shots in this.
Yeah,
moment.
Bunch of incredible shots
where the Traveler is pushing away from Earth and the clouds are parting is incredible, and it's like shot like horizontally, is so good. And then obviously the shot of the Traveler from the original D1 announcement art. Like, here it's happening, like we're at the end now, is like that feeling. Like, I think that's what got me emotional, of like, oh, like this is like, it's actually we're coming to the close.
You were coming to this is a moment that was clearly defined and thought of years and years ago for Destiny.
For years.
It's a pretty cool moment. It's a pretty insane moment. And then you hear Aramis over the comms. You're like, wait, the Traveler's not leaving. Why? Then you hear the Witness, because it has nowhere to run. And then you see a bunch of Pyramid Fleet ships, take over the screen. And then you just see a Lightfall logo pop up, and then
you see Callus's dreadnought ship in the background,
crazy looking
between all the pyramids.
Yeah. So
so cool.
Very cool. Very good setup to the Lightfall there. That was awesome.
That's awesome, and I loved it, and it's great. And again, I love that we see basically all the characters from last year. We see Saladin and Keitel like in space, like looking out at it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then we go back to Rasputin, check in with him, and he just gives the lore community the biggest like shotgun blast. Like,
stuff.
What the fuck does this mean?
Yep.
Of like, hey, the Neptune city's real. There's something on it that's linked to the Traveler. A sentence that has just never been said, because nothing has ever been linked to the Traveler, and it's called the Veil, which is apparently a paracausal object.
Yep.
Seems to be probably what the Witness has been looking for. And, just give that to the people for the last 2 weeks before Lightfall and let them go.
Yeah, let them go wild. There's tons of people already going mad with it. Yeah, it's really cool.
Me included.
I'm included. Yeah, seeing all the videos of people like already speculating. It's like, yeah, it's really really cool. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's definitely something that like this is going to be the thing the witness is like. I think he attacks Earth. I think they start an attack on Earth, and we quickly start to lose. And then like we're gonna go like, oh, we're gonna run to Neomuna and the Veil, but somehow the witness senses that or overhears it somehow because he can or it can do whatever, it's we know it's power, and it's probably gonna go like, oh, the Veil, that's where it is. Thanks, and then they're gonna go to Neomuna. I bet is what it is. So I think I'm with you. Like I think that is the thing they're looking for. What it is, who freaking knows? Like you said, it is some kind of paracausal power. Like, it makes sense in the idea of like, oh yeah, you think about it like, well, Neomuna has been hidden all this time, and no one's known it's there. They've even said, I think it's in the lore books. It's in some lore books that like we've been to Neptune before.
Yeah,
and
they've searched Neptune.
They searched Neptune and never found anything. What does a veil do? It hides and covers things. So maybe that's
turns out it's just a big tarp. Yeah, Witness just needs a big tarp. Throw it over the traveler.
Throw the traveler, and it fucks him up or does something to it.
Yeah. And it's like we're putting this one to rest, and then he just leaves.
Yeah. We're tucking in the traveler with the big veil and putting it to sleep. That's it. That's it. She's
the final shape.
The traveler just needed sleepies. It's really tired after all this time.
Yeah, I just love this. Like on many levels, like obviously big budget cutscene's always fun. Yeah. A mission sets a legendary difficulty by default to kind of get you in that mindset for new legendary campaign is great. And just like giving a little bit extra on top to like have something that we can speculate about in those last couple weeks. Before we finally get to go find out what the fuck's about to happen.
Yeah, what the hell is going on with the fight with Lightfall? But yeah, I agree as well. It was a fun kind of wrap up to the season. Definitely one of the best wrap ups they've done, especially in terms of like even like the other things they've done with like the seasons leading into campaigns. Like like the Witch Queen one was pretty decent. Like that little mission was cool, but I don't think it definitely did not have the impact that this sequence had. And I would say the one before it was pretty cool too, for Beyond Light, where the traveler like healed. Like having that kind of whole in-game sequence where you have this sequence where like when it first starts, you're like running through the streets of like the last city, which is really cool. And you kind of get up on these rooftops and it's like a public space, so like a bunch of other guardians and everyone's just like hanging out. There was a cool vibe to that for sure. But then like the whole culmination of it is just like you compared this scene where you had this massive, CG cutscene that showed all the characters from the universe and this big, it's clearly this moment that was like built, that was like planned and built up to, where you have that where it's just like you get the end of it was 2 lines from Aramis of like it's calling to us or something like that. It was like a really basic line, and then it just cuts to like the just the screen, the destination screen, and then just like some black stuff comes onto it, and then it just closes. Like comparatively, this was like, oh wow, like this is like a much different thing. They're ultimately both different things in their own cool ways, but this was like had such a bigger deal to it. I think at the end of the day, it was very cool.
It does. It feels good to be along the ride for those moments, though, and this one especially of like, this is it, like the beginning of the end, right? Like, and they've been talking about Lightfall that way. So to have a moment in universe where all of our characters and all of us are looking up at the traveler in this moment together is like really cool and unifying in a way that's like unlike anything we've seen before. It sets the stakes, which is cool.
Yes, 100%. It sets the stakes for us to wait just a handful more days till Lightfall. We're getting there. We have one more week of Season of the Seraph to get through. And I will say, like, I don't know if there's gonna. I feel like they've given us all the information they can give us. I'd be if they somehow edge out like 3 more blog articles. I'd be like, please rest over there. Stop, please rest over there.
Yeah, I think we could get a blog on Guardian ranks on Wednesday potentially.
Yeah, maybe some more in-depth Guardian rank stuff. We don't need it. The only thing I think one thing they should do, or not should do, but could do that I think would be cool is like a patch note preview, which they've done in the past, where like here's like a bigger look at like here's they haven't talked about exotic armor and like if there's changes to that, so like here's some changes to that or buffs and nerfs to exotic armor. Here's maybe a couple of buffs or nerfs we didn't talk about in this previous thing. Like they could maybe do that, but I think like at this point they can just kind of shut up. And there's only a week, there's less than a week now, or pretty much a week left, and we can Lightfall will be here. So yeah,
they've crushed it. Honestly, like I think this lead up has been so fun. It
has been a lot of fun
to have. It's been so fun to have stuff to talk about every week.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
And to feel like we know so much, but also know so little about what we'll actually be doing in Lightfall is really fun.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, if you're listening, we got a week until our pre-Lightfall episode. Our last one will come out next Monday. Mm-hmm. Today this goes up on the 21st, right? Monday 20th, maybe, whatever.
Yeah.
My next column for Destiny will be all about Lightfall prep, but also like what do you do day one on Lightfall? Like what is the order of operations?
Yeah.
To kind of maximize your time. So go check that out as well.
Check it.
Whew, I'm so hyped.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah. We're so close. I can't wait. But yeah, I think we've talked about everything we can talk about. Boy, enjoy 3 hours of Destiny talk from us, baby. For this week, it was a beefy one, but it was a lot of really great stuff about Destiny this week, and a lot of stuff to be excited about the future of the game, for sure. But yeah, we'll be back to talk about whatever in the next episode. I think I'm hoping it's not going to be like a more info dumpy type stuff. What we're probably going to do for our next episode is we're going to look back at, I think I mentioned this in another episode, we're going to look back at a predictions video we did for the year of post Witch Queen, and we're going to see what we got right and wrong from that. And maybe we'll make some more predictions for post Lightfall, but I think maybe we could leave that for another episode after we play it as well. We'll figure it out. Just depends on how if they give us a bunch more info next week. Kind of just depends on what they have. But I sure hope they don't give us too much more, because I don't even want to look at it, because I'm like I just want to get in now. We're so close. I'd rather just like get into the game, But yeah, that's gonna do it for this week on Helm to Tower. Thanks to everybody who's been listening to all the episodes so far, and who listened and made it all the way here in this one, because it's definitely
appreciate you.
Definitely a longer one. Thanks so much, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye bye.